fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
This is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
40 of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome one and all to virtual Milwaukee for a very special edition of the International Majors Series here on the iRacing Esports Network, presented, of course, by ourselves at SimSpeed TV. I'm Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Ryan Jones. And Ryan, round 12, the Tony Bettenhausen 200-mile at the Milwaukee Mile in the Lotus 49, evoking memories of the 1963 200-mile race at Milwaukee, where Jim Clark took the first ever IndyCar win in a rear-engined machine. This is paying tribute to that.
Yeah, and it's great that we're doing so. It's a good old throwback around this one. The oldest operating motor speedway in the world, and of course the oldest car we have on the iRacing service, the Lotus 49. Not the exact car that Jim Clark drove back in 1963, but Jim Clark did in fact drive this car in the 1967 Formula One World Championship. So still got to go back a long, long way to see the last time this car was driven in the real world when it was first introduced.
Absolutely, and my goodness, what a race we've got on our hands today. It's a far cry from what oval racing is today, with slick tyres and wings and drafting. This is an old-school short-track race, the Lotus 49, with its 400 horsepower V8 and no wings, no engine cover to speak of, no protection for the driver, and look at that, grooved tyres. So as you can see, the cornering speeds are a little bit slower than what we've got today, but the challenge is tenfold.
It certainly is, and on top of that, this is a car that, for the most part, isn't used that often within the iRacing service. So for a lot of these drivers, there's a lot of inexperience out there with how this car is going to handle over the course of 200 laps today. And on a short track as well, it's going to provide a whole other challenge as well. Only a mile long this racetrack. You've got to get on the brakes really hard. You've got to turn that wheel really hard on these cars as well. And going to be a lot of challenges thrown up today.
Well, before we take a look at the challenges that are going to be thrown up by this race, let's take a look at the standings of this championship at the current time. Starting off with the Pro Drivers' Championship, Cameron Dance currently holds a big lead over Robert Northway of 479 points, and it's going to be difficult for him to make up that gap, but the battle behind for third backwards is pretty intense.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's second place to eighth place is separated by just about 290 odd points, which is pretty much half the deficit from first to second. So that battle is going to be pretty much the battle to watch for the Pro Drivers' Championship. Barring some catastrophe from Cameron Dance, he should be pretty safe and dry from this point. Touch wood. I don't want to curse Cam. But yeah, that battle behind him is going to be a one to watch for sure.
It certainly is. John King versus Dean Mole versus Chris Purnell there for fourth place. Skurlock and Bowen as well in shouting distance. That's going to be interesting coming out of this one. The Pro Teams Championship, on the other hand, well, there's pretty much no competition for Kinetic Swift Racing, and Illusion Motorsport has a sizable buffer to MF Racing 2 in the team standings. So it looks like there won't be much change there.
No, there most likely won't be. There could be some change for fourth place. SimSpeed Esports and Avatar Auto Racing separated by just about 400 points. That's pretty tight. Reasonably tight, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Twisted Key Racing, DPR Racing, and JP Simshed as well. So still a couple battles to come out of the next 3 rounds, the final 3 rounds of this Major Series Championship.
Yeah, we're coming up to the very end of it, which means it's going to be crunch time for a lot of these guys. The sportsman drivers will have to keep an eye on things, because Dave Douglas enjoys a 395-point lead over Riley Curtis, but Matt Hunter is chopping at their heels.
He is. Dave, I know. I've spoken to him about it. He's very confident about this championship, and he's going to hate me for saying that on the broadcast, but I know he's confident, so I expect him to perform well today. I know he's not a huge fan of the combo, but he's a very consistent driver, should perform well. Riley Curtis, Matt Hunter, Ducati and McCarthy, they're all very consistent. They're all fighting very closely for that second place battle. And even behind them, Bradley Matheson, Scott Kukas, Eric Phelps, and Gavin Barber, they're all pretty close. And once again, outside of the battle for the lead, it's a really close battle.
It certainly is, and I think RCD Sim Sports will certainly enjoy being 1, 2, 3, 4 in the sportsman drivers' standings. But here are the challenges facing the drivers today at Milwaukee, a 200-lap race of a mile-length circuit. And it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy calls are going to be, because those are the that's the track temperature, 46 degrees Celsius already. That's some odd challenge for the drivers. It'll be very slippery out there.
It really will be, and that track temp, it won't come down too much. The race is still going to finish pretty much in the middle of the afternoon in the American time, which means track temp's going to stay pretty high for the whole session. But in terms of that strategy you're about to mention, Reese, we really don't know what's going to happen, do we?
No, we certainly don't. Apparently, the Lotus 49's fuel tank is large enough to complete the entire race. So that's why we've put who knows next to the fuel numbers. There's a couple of different avenues you can take. There's always the possibility of a safety car in this one, and you kind of be hoping for one, because then you can put some new boots on the car. There are some drivers who will also underfuel on purpose, hoping that there'll be more than one caution.
Yeah, exactly. And with these hot track temps, with the challenges this car provides, I think a lot of people in this race, and certainly myself, am expecting to see the safety car make probably more than one appearance on this race. And so I think the biggest strategy calls in this race are going to come from who pits and who doesn't pit when that almost inevitable caution comes out.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, not pitting is going to put you at a serious disadvantage, because though the tyre wear isn't that bad on the Lotus 49 and the tyres can last the entire race, the pace drop-off will be quite intense, especially considering the heat that is in the track and the amount of sliding that you have to do through the corners just to get this thing turned.
Yeah, exactly. It's something these guys got to adapt to pretty quickly and realise that, hey, these tyres are not going to be great off the restarts. And you know, if you restart with tyres that are 15, 20 laps older, you're just going to be finding yourself going straight back to the rear end of the field and losing everything you might have gained from staying out. So I think it's pretty clear cut. The caution comes out and it's been more than 10, 15 laps, you're going to pit. You're going to see the whole field come down. But 5 or so laps into a stint might be a bit interesting.
Definitely might be. We've got just about 5 minutes to go in this practice session, and drivers are just making their final preparations. It's a beautiful view seeing these cars go around this circuit, and especially this onboard angle from the Swift Kinetic machine of Dean Moll. And you see just how early they let off the gas and rotate that car through the entry of the corner. And once he comes out, you're just waiting for the revs to rise in the engine. But these guys have to back off a huge amount around here.
They do, and you've got to wait a long time to get on the revs, to get on the throttle, as well. I know someone was saying earlier that it's almost a quarter of the way down the straight by the time you're even getting the full throttle, because there's so much torque going through the rear tyres and so little grip being provided by these tyres as well, that you've got to be so patient, and that's going to benefit the more experienced guys who know to look after their tyres don't get too eager on that throttle, because if you do, you're going to put yourself at a serious disadvantage and maybe go into the wall, but you're going to use those tyres up tenfold.
You absolutely are, especially around a track like this, which is quite flat for an oval. Of course, the Milwaukee Mile, one of the oldest operating racetracks in the world, started out as a horse racing venue before the turn of the 20th century and started to be used for motor racing shortly after. And it's been this way ever since. There's a lot of subtleties to this circuit that Drew Lalonde is showing for us. The way that the track comes up on you through the turns, you see that it's not quite a perfect oval. There's some jags and little bumps down especially low. So you have to make sure that you have your car set up to ride those bumps, and you've also got to be able to sight your line through the corner properly as well. Late apex is the way to go around here.
It is, and that white line and the yellow curbs you see in the bottom of the corner, they're not perfectly, as you mentioned, like oval shaped or circular shaped. They go in and out, they jut in and out, and it's really awkward to pick your line. If you are running the low line and the car up top pinches you down, it's going to be really easy to let your left sides drift up onto the grass, especially through 3 and 4. That grass is much closer to the track than in 1 and 2, because obviously 1 and 2 you've got the pit entry line right to the left of Lalonde's car, which you can see there. And pretty narrow pit entry too, I might add, if we do happen to see green flag pit stops. Pit exit, sorry, my bad.
Yes, indeed. The pit exit, incredibly narrow, and you got to make sure that you get your car fully straight before you get onto the throttle, because if you exit unsafely, you'll be called straight back to the pits for a penalty. So there's the pit entry just over to the driver's front. That is also quite a narrow pit entry. So as you say, Ryan, green flag pit stops, they're going to be something to be avoided.
They will, whether we see it will depend on where we get cautioned, if we get cautioned, but also how much of a drop-off we see with the tyres. I'm not really too sure whether we're going to see a huge drop-off. I certainly expect to see a fair amount of tyre wear from the result of this big track tent we've got. Extremely hot. But we don't know really what the tyre longevity is going to be like, and that's going to be the interesting factor, because if some guys have their setup sort of set up, for lack of a better word, to be really nice on their tyres, they could potentially go the whole way, or they could go an extremely long way on long runs between cautions too, whereas some other guys that are more aggressive with their setup could see themselves suffering and needing to make a pit stop.
And that's all going to be how the strategy comes together, because both ways of approaching the race, you end up with the same general pace anyway. So it all depends on how the driver can make use of the advantages given to them by the strategy that they've chosen. There's Dwayne Burns out on track, currently sitting 6th on the timesheets, and this would be right up his alley. Burns does like this shorter track oval racing, and the Lotus 49 is certainly a fun car to wheel around Milwaukee. You can see how much of a narrow arc they make out of the exits of the corner. It's definitely not like oval racing now, where you just try to maximize the line. It's all about coming in straight and coming off straight in this machine.
Exactly, you see that how far off Dwayne Burns is to the wall by the time he exits the corner. Gets out right to the wall by the time he turns into 3 and 4, trying to take as much of a straight angle through the corner as he can, but then again on exit you see he really straightens the car, almost driving towards the wall, trying to keep that car as straight as possible, use as little turn in as possible, these cars.
And there's also that strip of tarmac down the bottom there. Of course, that wasn't there when IndyCar raced here back in 1963, but it offers a little bit of an interesting surface change for the drivers to deal with, because when you're running side by side, in some cases you almost want to be a little bit higher, just because the track's a little bit cooler when you're slightly offline. But down there, that dark tarmac, that's where the tyres grip very nicely. So it's yet another balancing act that these drivers have to deal with.
Yeah, it provides a bit more grip down there on that tarmac line, and something that these drivers will have to take into account throughout the race as a practice session is just about to wind to a close, and are on board with Gavin Barber. And look at that view of that engine. I love this car. Open air engine, exposed to the conditions. God knows what the reliability was like back in the day, but I can't imagine it was that great.
No, certainly wasn't. You don't really need to do much for cooling, though, which is a plus. Here is the grid then for round 12 of the Majors Series. Marco Mogren starting on P1. John King joins him on row 2. Great lap to Finn to start off with. Dean Mole and Chris Purnell on row 2, with Stevens and Skurlock taking up 5th and 6th. 7th and 8th, Dave Douglas and Dwayne Burns.
Rounding out the top 10 will be Cameron Dance of SimSpeed Esports, Matthew Clute from MFR Racing, who I should mention are sporting a really good new livery this week. I hope we'll get a shot at it at some point during the broadcast. Gavin Barber, Shane Bowen are riding behind them with Drew Lalonde and Philip Otto on the 7th row, and then Sharon Cardia McCarthy and Brad Fenley lining up 15th and 16th.
Rounding out your field, we have Matt Hunter, one of the fighters for the Sportsman Championship, Craig Hawkins, Riley Curtis, Sean O'Hara, and Mirko Dortanak starting in P21. Of course, Dortanak starting from the back for a couple of transgressions last round, Ryan.
Yeah, I believe I saw in the live qualifying results it was a 30-place grid penalty he copped for this race as a result of the finish to last round's race at Michigan, which was a very exciting finish, but probably at the same time very controversial.
Yeah, would have to say. So Dortanak is going to have to work his way up this grid if he wants a shot at some championship points, but it's not going to be an easy undertaking. So it's a rolling start here behind the Mustang pace car, and we'll be going green, I believe, this time by.
Yeah, lights are out on the pace car. She'll get green this time by, and going to be interesting to see who gets to jump here and where these guys opt to run, over the inside or the outside, and how quickly they single file themselves out.
Well, the pace car will move into the pits presently, and Marco Mogren will assume control of the field. How early will he go? The guys at the very back of the field will be at a disadvantage. They're still in the turn, but green flag flying, and Marco Mogren getting a fantastic jump there over John King, who is under pressure here, getting passed by Dean Mole already into turn 1. And everyone's just trying to find their little piece of the track. Matthew Clote, it seems, already trying to make some moves on the outside there. He's just gotten past Dave Douglas, and Douglas stuck on the inside, which is a bit unfortunate for him. Not much momentum you can carry through these corners.
It's been a horrible start for John King. Started the outside of the front row. He's going to go all the way back at the line to P number 6, and he's going to lose out to Michael Skurlock through the corner. Might lose out as well to Cameron Dance, who's trying to get his nose up the inside as well, and John King is stuck on that outside, getting absolutely freight trained by everyone on the inside. You want to try and cut down behind Cameron Dance in the middle of the corner and try and stop this rampage of cars that is blowing by him now.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he's just run a bit too wide there once again, almost getting into the back of Dwayne Burns, but Cameron Dance with no trouble, no such trouble. A little bit of an oversteering moment in the last turn, but now he is really pressuring Michael Skurlock as we look at Burns and Clote for 8th and 9th. Side-by-side exit out of turn 2. But it seems like some of the drivers are beginning to make the inside really work for them. Those outside guys, they unfortunately are missing that lunge into the corner.
Yeah, they're losing out at entry, they're losing out in the middle of the corner, of course, because it's a longer way around the racetrack, and it's not really working for them at this early stage of the race. But as the race goes on, we could see that line change, and that's something with racing. A line often changes in the middle of the race. You see the leaders, a decent lead there. That is Marco Mogren from Dean Mole. Then back to this battle now, side by side. Cameron Dance trying to make moves on Michael Skurlock, who's gone very wide, all the way up to the top of the racetrack. The middle of the corner will lose out to Cameron Dance. John King will get by him as well, and his Matthew Clote will try and will succeed in getting his nose up the inside. So we've seen this a couple times already in the early stages. You get stuck on the outside, you lose a handful of positions very quickly.
Yeah, so this early race navigation is all about keeping to the inside of the corners, and Dwayne Burns trying his best there to make his way past Michael Skurlock, but nothing doing at the moment. See what he can do on the exit. That's another car running wide, Matthew Clote. But it looks like he's able to maintain that momentum. Skurlock has absolutely no answer to him at the moment. Oh,
He
dance
doesn't,
through.
but look at Dance. Dance has got some answers at the moment, moving himself up into P4, moving by Chris Purnell. And Cam Dance, I'm impressed by his start. He's had up from 9th to 5th already, up 4 spots in 6 laps, and doing a pretty good job of it on the inside line.
Oh, 3 wide in the background briefly. Clote, Burns, and Skurlock. These guys not able to leave each other alone, and Burns now on the inside coming into turn 1. Craig Hawkins has already had some dramas, apparently. We're going to get a Motum simulation replay of him hitting the wall. Very unfortunate to start off the race for Craig Hawkins. It just looks like he lost it coming into turn 1, and it just fires you straight into the wall. With a car as fragile as this, there's no coming back from that.
Yeah, no, it looks like he might have just hit a bump and lost control of the car, and unfortunately almost overcorrected up into the outside wall. Unfortunate for him to end his day almost just after he started it, as John King will look down to the inside of Chris Purnell into turn number 1. And that will be, it should be, and it will be, spot made for King. But look at Purnell getting right back up under, I was going to say his rear wing, but there isn't one. Right up behind his engine through turn 2. And I think Purnell's got some pace, but he's just not really finding a rhythm at the moment.
Yeah, you could see he really likes to get on the throttle early and get that initial jump out of the mid-corner, but that means that he loses all of the momentum coming onto the straight that King has. So I get the feeling if Purnell doesn't change up his driving style a little now, he's going to start losing a few more positions as time goes on. You see once again there the dichotomy of the lines. King just straight lining it as much as possible.
Exactly, and these guys could also be playing that long game, trying to save their tyres already. Someone like Chris Purnell wouldn't surprise me at all if he's just looking after those tyres. He's very experienced, knows what he's doing. Matthew Clote, same sort of scenario, running that MFI Racing special livery for this round, the little shark teeth in the front of the car. I love liveries like that.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I love the retro style liveries that come out on the 49. Purnell, though, still under a lot of pressure there from Burns right behind, and Matthew Clote's got a good view of all of this. Bowen and Skurlock as well, hanging on to these guys. So it looks to me like Dance up ahead hasn't quite gapped them as much as I thought he would. So it looks like things are starting to settle into a bit of a rhythm here.
Yeah, they're all starting to single file out now and get into their rhythm for the race and start to look after their cars and make sure they're there. 200 laps, it's a long way. We're only lap 11, of course, and there's a 3-hour limit to this race if you do get a number of cautions. But it's been a nice clean start so far, as that will be side by side down the main straight. Dwayne Burns trying to make something work. Almost a bit too conservative on entry. Got an overlap to Matthew Clote on the outside, but not going to be able to do anything with it. He has to slot back in behind him. Just in behind these guys is Shane Bowen and Michael Skurlock, who are running out the top 10, and we get our first caution of the day. That is Trumbull back in the pack. That's Dave Douglas. Put the curse on him, I think, Reese. I said he was confident, and he's put it in a fence by the looks of it. We'll get a replay up on the screen.
He'll be writing a strongly worded letter to you soon, I think. Let's have a look at what happened to Douglas. He does seem pretty under control out of the turn there. Might this just be another case of losing it? Under brakes for turn 1? Yes. He just over-rotated. It was almost exactly the same incident that we saw before. So I feel like the brake bias might have been a bit far back, or maybe just hitting a bump the wrong way.
Very possible it's brake bias related, or there is a bump down there. Looking at that, I would say brake bias, but in my defense, I said he was confident about the championship, not this race. But it's unfortunate for Douglas, and I do believe we saw Craig Hawkins back out on track. And he is back out on track, so based off that, Douglas should hopefully be able to get back out there, seeing as he's almost identically matched Hawkins' crash.
Yeah, well, every driver in the majors gets a spare car that they can use once during the race, but that's the only opportunity they get. So for it to happen this early for those guys in a 200-lap race, they're going to have to play the ultra-conservative game from here on in.
Yeah, something got us realised too. Interesting that Hawkins has gone 4 laps down as a result of that, getting that spare car. No caution for him, yet for Dave Douglas we saw a caution. He should get lucky enough to not lose a lap, so that's crucial as well for the championship.
That definitely is, and he's already away off the jacks and coming out onto the circuit again, so That actually ended up working out all right for Dave Douglas. It'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. Remember, it's entirely possible that some drivers could do the entire race without pitting once.
Yeah, exactly. And for Dave, he'll learn from his mistakes, maybe push that brake bias back to the front a little bit so he doesn't pinch those rears again, and he'll work on getting this car to the end. Got to be careful too now. As you mentioned, only one spare car in the Major Series and doesn't have another spare car for the next 185 laps left in this race. Quick maths, almost struggled there.
Quick maths. Yes, indeed. Well, I'll bet that guy's arm is getting tired holding up that flag, so we should give him a break pretty soon. Say the pace car is still out, lights on. Of course, we won't know that the pace car is coming in until the lights are off on the car, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that visual cue. But a good opportunity now for the drivers to have a rest, reconsider what they're doing, and maybe make a couple of on-the-fly changes.
Yeah, for sure, good opportunity for that. Good opportunity to grab a drink that they may have by the side as well and take a swig of that, get rehydrated. But also with this restart, unlike the majority of oval races we see, and the other 2 oval races for the season, or other 3 we've had, were all double file restarts. The Lotus 49 here at Milwaukee going to be a single file restart, so it's going to make it a little bit easier for the leader to retain the lead of the race. Should provide a little less carnage off the restarts as well, but it also means drivers won't quite have as big of an opportunity to gain off these restarts.
No, certainly not. The double file nature of most oval restarts means that there's an awful lot of jostling in the pack on the first couple of laps off the caution, so good move to make it single file restart and avoid the possibility of some of that. This is a hard enough car to drive as it is. We don't really need lap 1 shenanigans going on. Well, the safety car coming in then, and Marco Mogren seemed pretty much untroubled during that first stint. Just put down the hammer and hit his marks. He'll be wanting to do exactly the same from here. So restarting the race then on lap 16 of 200. Marco Mogren decides to go just a little bit before the green flag is actually waved, and Dean Moll staying with him there for Swift Kinetic, and Dance swiping down there to maintain 3rd place over Daniel Stevens, getting a little up on the curb too.
Aggressive move from Cameron Dance to hold on to the 3rd place. Looks like everyone else has stayed single file, at least through 1 and 2 at least. They've all got to close back up first. Of course, single file restarts can provide a bit of an accordion effect where people get spread out with reactions. There's Matthew Clute going side by side with Shane Bowen for what is 8th place on the track. Bowen down to the inside in the yellow car, just a little bit behind the shot. There he is, and he's going to make that move stick through turn 2. Matthew Clute can't get the cutback there either with these cars, struggling for turn in. And I think the cutback is a defensive move we often see in oval racing, but these cars are struggling for turn in, and it might not be quite as easy to execute.
Yeah, it will be. Stevens, meanwhile, has lost another spot, and Purnell is starting to pressure him here. Stevens not having a good time on this restart. Have a look at how aggressive the number 66 is there into turn 1. He's pushing incredibly hard on those front tyres, which may come a cropper later on. But I tell you what, with the pace that Daniel Stevens has at the moment, Purnell looks a fair shot at getting past him pretty soon.
Yeah, he does, and Purnell will be eager to move forward, won't be caught in 6th place. There's 5 cars in front of him that could spin out and have a crash. We've seen 2 people have already as he gets right up behind him there through turns 1 and 2. We see the different line and approaches they take with the brake and the throttle trace, and a much shallower exit for Chris Purnell as opposed to that 66 car in front of him. And conversely takes a wider exit into entry into turn 3, but not able to find a way through. He's going to work on it, get a run going, and then dive it up the inside, preferably, to make this move stick.
It's very tempting to try a dive, outbraking your rival into these turns, but one of the first lessons you learn when trying oval racing for the first time is that usually doesn't work. You have to concentrate on your exits, and this time Purnell has concentrated very well on his exit. Stevens, though, protecting the inside, bit of oversteer coming into the turn. Purnell might be in a bit of trouble here because Dwayne Burns is starting to slot up on his inside. He might lose a spot here.
Yeah, the outside, not the best route to go there for Chris Purnell in hindsight. And maybe later in the race that could work, but right now, definitely not working because here comes Dwayne Burns down the inside. And that will be a spot gain for Burns, capitalising on the misfortune of Chris Purnell there. And unfortunate for Purnell is he looked like he had the pace to gain a spot, and unfortunately he's lost a spot out of all that. We'll see that whether Dwayne Burns has got any pace, whether he can get up from back Daniel Stevens, John King, Cameron Dance, who are all quite a way away now from Dean Moll, who's about 8/10 off the back of Marco Mogren.
Yeah, that top two have broken away, haven't they? It's a lonely circuit for them, but Cameron Dance has got a huge train of cars behind them, foremost of which is John King, and those guys look like they're just trying to size each other up at the moment in third and fourth. Meanwhile, the battle for the top 10 really heating up. Cloten Skurlock fighting hard for position 9 here. And Skurlock taking that wider exit out of the turns, and he seems to be maintaining just enough momentum, but at the moment, the car behind him is looking a lot smoother.
There is, we see that shallow exit. He's not going to be close enough to go up the inside of 3 and 4, but he's working on it. He's getting closer and closer with each lap, and by 10th, he will get there as we cut away now to the battle for third place. Ooh. Cameron Dance and John King, they're getting close together now in this battle for what is third place and appears to be best of the rest, really, behind these top 2 drivers. In behind these guys is Daniel Stevens, who is 5th and has closed up to the back of these 2. Cameron Dance maybe just struggling a little bit at the moment for some pace in that car because he's got 2 guys coming up behind him and starting to pressure him now.
Oh, have a look at Stevens showing the nose on the inside, but not able to get it up alongside John King. King actually going a bit deeper into the corner to try and maintain some momentum, but it hasn't worked for him entirely on exit. Daniel Stevens firing his way on through, and this may be 4th place for him if he can hook up the exit nicely. King, it looks like he's conceded it, slotting in behind. That has given Cam Dance another bit of breathing room, but if he makes another mistake, he'll be right back in on these guys. Have a look as well at Dwayne Burns, who is continuing to advance up the field himself. Now he could be looking at a position here from King and Stevens.
This race seems to be all about keeping that momentum up. As soon as you lose a spot, you see yourself very quickly in the hands of the car behind you and coming under more and more pressure. These guys seem to really be struggling once they get overtaken to get the momentum back up quick enough as Dwayne Burns and John King getting really close there through 1 and 2, and King braking later than Burns, opening up that gap through the corner, but that should allow Burns to take a better exit, get the power down quicker than John King. But of course, now that I say that, it's a good exit for John King.
Yeah, it looks like he took the nice narrow line on the exit there. Now it's up to him to attempt to get up to the back of Daniel Stevens. It does take a bit of a rhythm, this car around here. Oh my goodness, Matthew Cloten the wall! Made contact with another car. Yellow flag is out. Fortunately, that car doesn't look too damaged, but looks like it was contact with Michael Skurlock.
Yeah, those 2 won't be happy with that. Looks like Dortnack just pretty much got the wall. That was we'll get a replay up on the screen. I'll show you exactly what I'm about to mention here. Inexperience of this car showing there for Matthew Cloten, just not really aware of where that right side is. As you see, in a straight line, just drifts up into that wall, clips it, and Skurlock, not really anywhere to go, gets into his left rear. Cloten, I think, looks like he's kept it off the wall on the inside too, though. So he should escape too much damage. I think even if he has got damage, he has got that spare car. But either way, that's a shame for Cloten and a shame for Skurlock, who that's damage and contact that he wouldn't have liked. And you just saw that front right, that nose cone popped up for Skurlock, and he loves some aero damage from that.
Yeah, that's not going to be good for Michael. But it looks like the aero dependency around here is not as huge, so he should be able to still have an all-right race. Maybe pit under a safety car that comes out more towards the middle of the race, but that's a beautiful view from the chopper of Milwaukee, and you get a real sense in that shot, Ryan, of how wide the track is. It seems like there's a lot of room, but once you're actually out there driving, it's far from it.
Well, the track's wide enough. They had a NFL match in the infield in the stadium back in the 1900s, so it's plenty wide enough track. But yeah, as you mentioned, the actual racing service itself is not anywhere near as wide as it could be for the size of the venue, and that short track feel to it as well. And you've seen a lot of drivers making the track very shallower than they would be entitled to. They're taking a much shallower line, and it's giving it a much, more claustrophobic feel than normal. Something we just picked up on that Jay Kennedy, our director, has given us a little hint to mention is that Michael Skerlock, he hasn't pitted to take that damage. So as you mentioned, Race, the area dependency on this track, maybe Skerlock feels it's not worth pitting on with this damage he has, and he's going to be alright with just a little bit of damage to his front end.
Yeah, well, the caution came out pretty quickly, and he's only been touring around at 100 kilometers an hour, so Skerlock, I don't think, has any real reading on how the damage affects his car at racing speed. He may end up pitting under green flag if it turns out to not be great. And Daniel Stevens has decided to come in and take that stop. So in from 5th place, out in 18th, so he'll have a good tyre life advantage over pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, in theory he should, but one of those things is these guys aren't pitting with these cautions, and with the majority of the field staying out, pretty much the entire field staying out, it would suggest that there's very little tyre wear at the moment. So Daniel Stevens pitting might be a bit of a misplay, but credit to him, he's tried it. It's early enough in the race that he can try it and not lose out too much in the long run. He can get back up there before the final laps of the race, but I'll be keeping a keen eye on Stevens now to see how he progresses with those fresher tyres.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're going to get back racing again very soon because the lights on the pace car are out once again. Marco Mogren and Dean Mole have had a couple of practices at this now. They've got that start down pat, and with Cameron Dance, it seems, while he is quick, it seems he is holding up the guys behind him ever so slightly, so who knows, they might end up getting a nice gap again. But will Cameron Dance be able to nail that restart? We'll see.
Should find out then. As a pace car jumped down off turn 4, Marco Mogren's got a pretty decent gap there back to Dean Mole in 2nd place, who's laying quite a way off him for this restart. That's an interesting tactic as Mogren jumps. Dean Mole, predictably, is nowhere near him. Cameron Dance did a pretty even start there for most of the field, and they're all single file into turn number 1 as you would expect, and Mogren holds about a 10 car length advantage over Dean Mole. Cameron Dance and John King trying to put the pressure on him before he jumps away. And it's Dwayne Burns, Pernell Bowen, and then the 2 closest cars, Michael Skerlock with that damage. He's going to be finding out now, how is that car handling as he runs very wide on entry.
Yeah, he does indeed. Skerlock trying to go for that late apex there. Not seeing much evidence of wayward behaviour from his car, but still getting in there nicely versus Shane Bowen. Meanwhile, for 14th and 15th, we're seeing quite the fight. Ryan McCarthy was fighting briefly with Phil Otto, but he's just run wide, and a little bit 3 wide running. Never heard anyone. Daniel Stevens already making up a couple of spots.
Yeah, he is. As a speed, they'll come back. Daniel Stevens will slot up into 15th place, that it should be. He restarted from 18th place at the back of the field, and it's looking like he's going to try and put the pressure on McCarthy, and he's going to go by him with relative ease up there into turn 1. They're side by side in front of him as well. That is Drew Lalonde and Sean O'Hara. O'Hara picks up that spot on Lalonde as Stevens is looking to make some progress with these tyres and doing a good job of it. Further up the field, still side by side action again. Almost 3 different lines being taken. Stevens, that very bottom line, he's flying on those fresh tyres, and
look at that.
Dare I say it, tyre wear maybe more important, and tyre grip more important than some of these drivers thought. Stevens is flying out there, a 30.9 last time by cars in front of him running 30.8, so of course don't forget Stevens is in traffic. Meanwhile, the battle for 3rd.
Yes, indeed. Cameron Dance and John King still going at it as they always have. King might have worked out the kinks in his driving over those first laps of the race, and now he's putting some proper pressure on Dance, who is moving around a bit more in the corners than King is, and had to actually get off the throttle there. Washed out slightly in the mid-corner. King, it seems, has looked after his front tyres a little better.
Yeah, it seems like he has, and he's putting a whole heap of pressure on Cameron Dance
look.
now. And Dance really struggles in the middle of the corner, runs up wide, and just pretty much hands that position to John King. And that's not how you want to be defending here in the ovals. You don't want to give that inside line up, because it's looking like that inside line is the place to be right here in the Milwaukee Mile. And we'll see whether John King pulls away from him, and we would expect him to. He's certainly putting a pressure on him.
Yeah, King's doing what really is the fastest way to drive this car around this track at about 70 or 80%. If you feel like you're pushing hard in the Lotus 49, you're pushing too hard. That's the basic rule when driving this thing. These guys, 6th, 7th, and 8th, Purnell and Bowen. Bowen has made his way up very nicely through the field, started 12th, now 7th, and Purnell has not had a great start to this one. He's actually fallen back slightly, so seems that that Purnell and Bowen, a little bit of difference there on their race setups.
Yeah, potentially. Bowen, as you mentioned, up 5 spots, and Purnell down 2 spots, and Mogren's just done the fastest lap of the race up in front at 29.992 on tyres that are 40 laps old, so I don't think there's much tyre wear out there racing. A comparison, Daniel Stevens ran a 30.5 last time around for him, so it's not looking like pitting under caution is going to be the way to go. All that track position, keeping those tyres nice and clean, don't overheat them, and don't hit the wall, crucially.
Yeah, very crucially. Those walls are an ever-present threat around here. Well, Skurlock, who we're focusing on at the moment, he seems pretty comfortable tucked in behind these guys. Bowen and his teammate Purnell. Seems to me that not much of an aero effect around here. And Skurlock just maybe saving a bit of fuel as well, because, you know, obviously you can fill up the car and complete the entire race, but if you underfuel the car hoping for a caution, then if you get a bit more green flag running than you expect, you're better off sitting behind someone.
Yeah, exactly, but I think looking at how this race has panned out so far, the Shabbat would have done the testing throughout the week and realised, hey, these tyres are going to last a very, very long time, so do you really want to pit and go up track position just to fill up some fuel in the car? So I think looking at this, I'd expect that most of the field probably fueled their car all the way up the start of the race to go to the end, and that was a very wide exit back there for Chris Purnell. Might come into threat from Shane Bowen. He's just going to chop the nose.
Oh, no!
And Bowen spins on the inside right on the racing line. The caution will come out. Purnell just kept it off the wall, but you could almost see that one coming from a long way back. Bowen wanted that inside line, and Purnell just kept edging over and over and over, and eventually Bowen just ran straight into that left rear tyre.
Yeah, that's a big shame there. We'll get a modem simulation replay of that. It was quite a shame to see, but it's one of those things that you got to be wary of in the 49. Takes a while to slow down. You have to be right on your marks very early on. Unfortunately for Shane Bowen, he's lost all of the work that he's done through this race. Purnell, meanwhile, just getting away with it. Here's another view.
Yeah, Purnell very lucky. He'll probably see from this view too. As Bowen spins, Purnell goes up the racetrack. You think for all money he's going into the fence, but thankfully stomped on those brakes as hard as he could. Kept it off that wall. He'll be good to go. Keep that car out on track and won't lose anything from that. Caution come out pretty quickly too. And yeah, there you go. You can see he's kept off the wall by a pretty significant margin too. Caution probably loses 1 spot from that overall from Purnell, but I don't think he can complain. He's got away with that. Probably chopped the nose a bit, but that's the challenges of this car. As someone's dove down onto pit lane. That is Chris Purnell.
No, sorry, my apologies. I've getting my car colours confused again. Ryan Ducati and McCarthy following him in. So a good opportunity for a few of these guys to get some fresh boots on their machines. Riley Curtis came in as well in the number 815. So look out for those guys coming from the back.
Just watching Purnell stop to see whether he took a new car. I'd hazard a guess that he hasn't, because he was about a 10-second stop, which is what we were hearing was the length for tyre changes, and he did go up on the jacks as well. So looks like Purnell's taken the opportunity of being involved in an incident and gone, hey, I'm obviously struggling just a little bit for tyre wear and tyre grip. Maybe not tyre, but the grip itself. Let's come into pit lane and see what can happen here.
Of course, for David Haynes' benefit, a brief shot of the fire engine on the interior of the circuit. I do like that little feature. Another driver on the pits, Craig Hawkins. This is his second tour through the pits in this one. Of course, it's something that that would probably not harm him too much, considering where he is.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's running around at the back of the field. Not going to gain much, not going to get a wave around. Don't believe Lucky Dogs are on for this race either, like we would see with NASCAR sanctioned races, or races that run under the NASCAR sanctioned rules. Of course, while it is on an oval, Indy cars don't have Lucky Dogs, and we're representing Indy cars here today, and no Lucky Dog for these drivers, which means the only way you're going to get your lap back is if you somehow find yourself between the leader and the pace car.
Yeah, and it seems like there's not much of a chance of that, considering the length of time it takes to transit the pit lane, and the amount of speed that you end up losing as a result of that. But for Marco Mogren up the front, certainly one of the calmest races he's had in, I presume, a very long time.
Yeah, it's been just way too easy for Marco Mogren, and I'm sure some of the AusNZ boys in this session, in the international region, this race obviously, will be a little bit eager to get up and break off this top three party. Marco Mogren, Scandinavian, Dean Moult and John King, both from the American region. So 3 internationals running in the international region, and actually no, sorry, John King is Asian region, but 2 of the top 3 from the other regions, and I'm sure these guys want to break up this party up front.
Yeah, they definitely will. And it looks like Marco Mogren is actually backing them up a bit off the pace car, so everyone is right on it now on these restarts. The kinetic cars still having a bit of a gap between them, but you see Dance and Burns right on the rear of John King. They want to get every opportunity they can. Green flag is away. It was a very good coordinated start from the 3 kinetic machines, but Cameron Dance now staying with them off this restart. Burns and Skurlock hanging on as well.
Yeah, good restart for those 3 guys, those 4 guys as well. Watching further back in the pack as Chris Purnell just made incredible inroads on 2 people already. Diving up the inside as a bit of side-by-side action up the front is Skurlock trying to make some inroads, and Marco Mogren has pretty much got about a 5 car length lead, 3 tenths per second back to Dean Moult. John King a little bit off them, then it's that back pack of cars. John King, Cameron Dance, Dwayne Burns, Michael Skurlock, and then you've got to look a bit further back to see the next group of cars, which is
Dance
Stevens. What's Dance done?
Oh, a big slide. He's managed to hold it, but my goodness, that was almost race ending. And it looks like Burns was a little spooked by that because Skurlock has just moved through on him.
Oh, where a replay up on the screen. I've just had a look at this, and he's done exactly what Douglas and Hawkins did at turn 1. Too much brake bias. That car's gone firing off to the inside, and he's going to be so thankful there's not a wall there like there is in turn 1, and a bit of airtime there, I think, as well. Hanging it out sideways is Cameron Dance, and getting some well-deserved airtime for that one.
And amazingly, he hasn't lost any positions out of that, so fair play to Cameron Dance, and that's a move there. Daniel Stevens going through on Mirko Dortanak. Stevens continuing his climb back up through the field on those younger tyres.
Yeah, he's making progress slowly but surely. Probably not quite the speed of progress you would have been hoping for, I doubt. But crucially for him, he's back up into 8th place. He's only a couple spots lower down than he was initially. So he'll be 7th place as he crosses the line. 2 more spots, and he's pretty much back where he started before that caution, and he's pretty much going to break even on it. The other car on fresh tyres is, of course, Chris Purnell, who's already back up into 12th place. He's running a 30.4, he's 3 tenths per second quicker than the cars in front of him, and even more so with a couple cars in front of them. So Purnell's got some pace back there with that potentially damaged exhaust pipe, probably from that crash with Bowen.
Yeah, well, it looks like it hasn't done much to stymie his progress. And we continue to take a look from the back of Cameron Dance at Mr. Skurlock, trying those tighter lines through the corners, and Dance, no stranger to sliding it around a little bit. They're still managing to hold station, but I feel like Skurlock, if he chips away at Dance a little bit more, another potential move.
Yeah, potentially. And of course, speaking of damage, obviously we saw earlier the nose cone damage to Skurlock as Skurlock's car. We can see it there. It seems like with the relatively speaking, low speeds of the Lotus 49, of course, still hitting 240 at the end of the back straightaway there. The damage, and being short track, the damage isn't quite as prevalent, and these guys are able to keep going, even with a bit of a knock to their car, which is great for racing. And it's also great that they can take a couple knocks and not have their entire race ruined.
Yeah, very true. The spare car definitely helps with that too in this series in particular. But you can see, due to the flatness of the turns, there is a lot of experimenting with lines, but there's just enough banking that if you stay a little bit off the bottom like Skurlock just did, you'll be able to get a fantastic run onto the straight. But it's no move once again for Dance. 10th and 11th, meanwhile, Gavin Barber and Chris Purnell. This is a move, potentially. Oh, there's always the threat of washing up in the middle of the corner, but it looks like a fairly conclusive move there from Barber. Or from Purnell, sorry.
Yeah, good move for Purnell. Those fresh tyres working nicely for him, and we look back to that battle for 4th place again. Skurlock again running a lane, or about half a lane higher than the Cameron Dance through the corner. He's got Dwayne Burns right up in behind him, and now roaring up onto the back of this battle is Daniel Stevens as well. So he's joined the party too. And going back to that point you were mentioning with the different lines for the corner and the banking, obviously a flat track, only a few degrees of banking. Normally you'd be able to run that extreme high line as Dwayne Burns gets it out sideways through turn 3. Normally you'd be able to run that high line and get a big momentum off the corner because you're being sort of propped up by the banking. But doesn't really work, and that's why no one's running in those 4 or 5 lanes out towards the wall, because the only thing you achieve out there is driving an extra 50 odd meters around the track, which is not faster in any sense of the word.
No way. Skurlock is getting more aggressive here with Dance, who's starting to slip up. You can see Skurlock gaining a lot of momentum through the mid-corner. Dance is concentrating a bit on his exits, but Skurlock is now close enough that he could try his hand at an overtake. It seems like I can see, looking at Dance, how much his car is moving around in the corners, and that might be slightly illegal because they are allowed to use that curb on the inside, but they're not allowed to go over it into the pit entry. So take care, Cam.
It looks to me like Skurlock is much better through 3 and 4, but through 1 and 2, maybe as a result of that experimental line, Cameron Dance has a bit of an edge as he goes defensive into 1, it almost seems like. And you see there, he starts to pull out just a little bit. Skurlock gets right up behind him, but now he's really close. And through 3 and 4, he might be able to get a nose underneath him if Cameron Dance washes up just a little bit. You see Skurlock props that car up out wide. He's going to look to turn it back in and get the run off the corner. There he goes, punches the car off the corner.
Oh, too early.
But doesn't get it. 2 run, washes up towards the wall, and now here comes Dwayne Burns to his inside. And Dwayne Burns says, thank you very much. That is a free spot that I'll take any day of the week.
Yeah, he certainly will. I mean, fair play there from Skurlock, but it looks like he just got on the throttle a bit too early to take advantage of that run. And It's given Dance another bit of breathing room. I tell you what, he's thrown off attacks from quite a few people in this race, and he's managed to weather most of it. More problems for Skurlock just going in there behind Daniel Stevens. I think he might have given up on that fight for now.
Yeah, that's That's an interesting one from Scott. Maybe overheated the tyres a bit, was just struggling for a lot of grip, but it seems like he's just pulled over and let Stevens go by, which is an intriguing choice considering Stevens is not part of the Illusion Motorsport stable that Skurlock is from. So maybe he's recognising that Stevens is on those fresher tyres and thinking, it's probably no fighting him, he's only made a pit stop, he's on fresher tyres, I want to see what the tyres have in terms of an advantage over those two cars in front of him. Maybe use it for some learning and some education to maybe educate himself on what he could do later in the race.
Cameron Dance, meanwhile, is dancing on the rears of that car, just trying his absolute hardest to get that thing turned in. Problem is, it is costing him momentum in the mid-corner, which is where you can see Dwayne Burns gaining on him. Right in the middle of that turn 3-4 complex is where Dance is at a major disadvantage, and you see how much he kicks the rear out on entry as well. Dance obviously believing that his rear tires he can afford to use them up a bit further, but it's not working out for him well at the moment. He could be in trouble.
He certainly could be. There's a number of lapped cars now starting to get involved in this fight. That is Craig Hawkins going backwards through them as John King last time round was substantially slower than those around him, a second slower than the car in front and 9/10 slower than the car behind. Maybe a result of the lapped cars. Craig Hawkins, he just went by. Matt Hunter is up there in front of him, moving out of the way now, and that should be most of lap traffic gone and dusted for now, as Cameron Dance will have to get down to the inside of Hunter and do so pretty much easily. But yeah, interesting for John King. Last time by for him. This time around it was a 30.2, so back on the pace for him, but he has given up some time to those guys behind and maybe giving them some incentive now to push a bit harder to get up to him.
Well, Cameron Dance, you see him hanging the tail out there just up at the top left of frame on the entry to the corners, trying to straight line the second half of it as much as possible. But it looks like Dwayne Burns, with his smooth and consistent lines, is able to maintain the same, if not better, pace. He was actually faster than Dance on the last lap by about a 10th. Also, we should point out that Cameron Dance has got a bit of damage to the front of his car. That's from when he had his little tour over the grass a few laps ago. So he'll be dealing with a little bit of wayward behavior as well.
Gary will, and you can see that it's on the front right, bit of paint scraped off, bit of a dent on that nose cone. Won't be helping him too much in this quest to hold on to third place, which I must say, he's doing a good job of holding on to this, but I think once he loses the spot, he's going to see those cars start to disappear off into the sunset, because he's really struggling, and again, look how wide he gets, 3, 3, and 4, look how close Dwayne Burns gets to his left rear. Burns has got a run here, actually. He's going to get really close. He's going to try and go to the inside, but Cameron Dance, late on the brakes, keeps that car ahead. And
all the momentum lost.
He's got no momentum in the middle of the corner, and he's compromising himself a lot here, to be honest.
Yeah, compromising Burns as well. I think Dwayne is trying to search for a gap, any gap, to make a move on Dance, but the way that Cam is positioning that car, he's just not able to get a leg up. So this battle could go on for a fair few more laps, I think, unless Cam Dance just absolutely overshoots it into one of the turns.
Which we've already seen him do, so not entirely out of the question, although you would hope he's learned from his mistake. And as you would hope for Dave Douglas, Craig Hawkins, and Shane Bowen, hopefully has figured out how to make those overtakes tick a bit better. Once again, Dwayne Burns, good run, looks to the inside. This time he gets there to the inside of Cameron Dance. This is the opportunity he needs. He's going to wash up a bit in the corner, bit too high than he would have wanted to, but off the exit, he's going to make it stick. And he's not quite clear yet. Cameron Dance is doing enough off the exit. Look how deep Cameron Dance goes into the corner, sliding on entry, trying to get that spot back, but it's not going to happen. Dwayne Burns will move up into 4th place, and Daniel Stevens will want to try to capitalise. Not going to be able to do it that time, though.
Well, Dance already having another look towards the inside of Burns, but I think Dwayne is all eyes forward from now on. He's been driving very smoothly, has Dwayne, so he'll have a good bit of life left in those tyres for now. Dance, I think, has overheated them a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think he has, and I think if we see another caution, we'll most likely see Cameron Dance dive down into pit lane and get some fresh tyres, because Daniel Stevens has shown you can get back up to where you started, and even if it's a case of you're not gaining anything, you're just breaking even, I would certainly prefer to be more comfortable with the car and not feel like I'm about to get thrown into the wall every lap. So I'd prefer to have fresh tyres, and I tell you, he probably doesn't care what tyres he's got in the car. Would be Marco Mogren, because once again he's done a 29.941, and that is a new fastest lap of the race, his 2nd lap into the 9s this time, and he's just got no pressure at all out front.
No, none at all. He looks perfectly comfortable and composed, unlike a few of the guys in this field. Cameron Dance has not fallen back a huge amount from Dwayne Burns, because they do have a bit of lap traffic to contend with there. That is in the form of Ryan Ducati and McCarthy down in 16th, so all of those guys have managed to get by him. But a little bit of an extra gap there between 4th, 5th and 6th now. It looks like Stevens is falling back slightly from Dance, who's starting to get back into a rhythm.
Yeah, maybe just benefiting from being in behind Dwayne Burns. He can see what line he's running, see where he's lifting off and where he's catching in the corner, and just adjust his own driving style to try and suit that as he takes all he can through turn 3 and pushing the absolute boundaries of what race control are deeming to be a legal lap.
Well, he's driving that thing like it's a Group B car with all of the brakes to the rear. Dance is just sliding that thing into every single corner, which I suppose is valid for the point of the race this is. We're almost up to half distance. Look at him go! My goodness! He's barely turning left at all.
He's driving like a dirt track, to be honest with you. He's sliding it in there on the rears, and we'll get a shot here. Look at that. Correction to the right, correction to the right, on it left, another one to the right. He's fighting that car all the way through the corner. Finally gets it settled on exits, but entry in middle, he's hanging on for dear life.
Absolutely is, and oh, that's a problem for Dave Douglas there up high, letting these guys through. Looks like Dance had to check up just slightly. Oh, what are you doing, Dave? But Douglas recovering from that. Bit of an awkward way to let lapping cars through, though.
Yeah, a little bit awkward there, but no harm, no foul in the end, as Daniel Stevens will go by Douglas as well, and we're seeing a number of cars going a lap down now. 13 cars on the lead lap. Drew Lalonde, the last car, scored in 13th place, and he's just a few car lengths in front of our race leader, Fenley Douglas. We'll get a replay up on screen for you. As D-Mole has closed up to Marco Mogren. This is Dave Douglas, and this is when he was attempting to let those guys go by. Watch the wheel work here for Dave Douglas, and that's all the way to the right. Full lock on the car, and great save from Douglas. And I think him and Cameron Dance are having a bit of a battle for who can get the most right out sideways today.
Yeah, well, I think that'll be a competition that goes on for a very long time. But Dean Mole, I was just going to say, with the navigating of the lapped cars, Mogren's actually lost a bit of time there to Mole in 2nd place. Drew Lalonde now letting these guys go. But the top 2 flying in formation at the moment. It's looking pretty good for Kinetic Swift.
It is. They've got a pretty good thing going with these cars. They found a setup that really works, it seems like, and they're making it work fantastically well in this race. And at the moment, it doesn't look like anyone's got anything for them. Caution's out on track though. That's the 4th caution of the day, and it is 4. We'll find out in a second. We'll get a replay, motion simulation up on screen. Matthew Cloet, once again, he's in the wars. Turn 1, did he lose it? No. So it's not a braking error, but it is an error. Don't tell me he's driven into the wall again.
We'll have to see. He's yep, there we go. Into the wall on the exit of turn 2. It's that's unfortunate. The second time Claude has done that. It is a troubling thing in the Lotus 49 because you feel like you can get on the throttle harder and get it a bit rotated on the exit, but it turns out with the way this car's set up, it's so soft. You get on the throttle too hard, it just plows. So very unfortunate for Claude.
Well, the interesting thing is, it seemed like both times he was past that acceleration zone and he was driving straight. And for me, it seems like he's past the acceleration. He's just not judged where that right side of the car is and made a huge mistake. As pit stops, Dean Mole opts to come down to pit lane. Cameron Dance won't come with him. Looking back further, no one else opts to come down, and this is going to be a big loss of track position for Dean Mole here.
Dave Douglas coming into the pits as well, but he is, of course, a lap down, so himself versus the likes of Lalonde, Fenley, Ducati McCarthy, and Otto. That'll be one to watch, but that is interesting to see P2 come in for some fresh rubber. Wonder if Marco Mogren will think about doing the same.
He'll definitely think about it, but I think the fact that there's 12 cars on the lead lap still, there's 11 people you've got to pass, it's not probably too beneficial at this stage. I think if Dean Mole starts making huge inroads, we'll see everyone else come down next caution, but the lap times are off. I mean, we saw Mogren was doing purple laps right up until about 5-10 laps before the caution came out, so there's almost no tyre drop off in terms of wear. But this time around, we've seen a lot more people dive down a pit lane. Cameron Dance is one of them. Phil Otto is another.
Hawkins, Hunter, it's all of these guys that are a lap down. Brad Fenley too. So it's
got caught out by the orange livery that Orlando's running. It's very similar to Cameron Dance's.
It certainly is, but unfortunately for the strategists out there, this is just an attempt here by the lapped cars to get a bit of extra pace towards the end. They're not going to lose anything by doing that. They might as well.
Yeah, might as well confuse the commentator. Why not?
Yep. Always fun. I'm pretty sure I've done that a couple of times. It's just karma, I guess. But pace car will be out for one more lap after this while the field gets itself formed up again. John King now finds himself in second, Burns in third. So those guys, they'll be starting to feel the effects of the tyre overheating and that ever so slight pace drop off. It seems like there is a very big advantage to pitting for new tyres, but only for about 10 laps or so. After that point, it tends to plateau.
Yeah, it seems so, and it was just enough for Daniel Stevens to get back up to where he was. For Chris Purnell, he's running around in 7th place, 3 spots below where he started from, but in terms of the pit stop, he's almost back where he was as well.
Yes, indeed, and I think as the race continues to go on, as we get closer to the end, you might see more and more drivers coming in for tyres, and if there is one final pit stop, I would predict that everyone would come in, because you don't want to be the one guy on old tyres when the last bit of the race starts off.
You don't, but we're going to get a restart here.
Yes, we are, and Mogren away very nicely in front of the lapped car there of Riley Curtis. He'll immediately go wide to let everybody through, and King, meanwhile, seems a bit safe from the pack behind him, at least for now. He's got a couple of car lengths.
For now, it's Dwayne Burns that's the one under pressure from Cameron Dance. We'll see whether Dance has cooled those tyres down, but Burns gets it very wide coming through turn 4. This might offer up an opportunity for Cameron Dance, and it does. Straight through he goes, up the inside, gets it done before they even reach the braking zone. And looking to capitalise is Daniel Stevens as well, trying to poke the nose up there, giving it a squirt of the throttle, making Burns go wide, and behind them too is Michael Skurlock and Chris Purnell. And this is a good little battle.
Yeah, this has been a very poor restart for Dwayne Burns. Stevens makes the move stick there into turn 3, but Burns, he just manages to slot himself in, so he's safe for now from Skurlock, who runs a bit wide on exit. But Burns, I think, will be a little bit rattled by that. Time to get back into race rhythm mode, but he's pushing too hard into the corner there, just losing some momentum. Daniel Stevens, meanwhile, nice and smooth, but to the outside observer, it looks like he's holding them all up.
It does. Oh, look at Cameron Dance up there in second. He's right, or third. He's right up the racetrack and almost grabbed the fence. He was so far up there. He's going to keep hold of third thanks to the fact he was so far ahead. As a back behind, there's a change of position. Chris Purnell has been given this spot by Michael Scott. Purnell's the team boss of Illusion Motorsports, so I dare say Team Orders there. And Skurlock lets him go.
Well, that position is sorted for now, but Skurlock, I think, continuing to have issues. He's just run wide yet again. Shane Bowen will go through, as will Mirko Dortanak, and Dean Moll on those fresh tyres is right behind these guys, so who knows? Cameron Dance, meanwhile, that's a big problem for him going wide in turns 1 and 2.
Lost the spot to Stevens, going to lose the spot, most likely to Dwayne Burns as well. Although,
oh my goodness!
Sideways, cuts out in front, Burns misses him. They all check up behind him. Purnell and Bowen do a good job not to come together as well. And Purnell try to get underneath Dwayne Burns down this main straightaway. And he's going to try and send it up the inside into turn 1. Burns taken quite a wide line, I must say, through 1 and 2. And will lose that spot. Behind them, there's contact. I think that was Mirko Dornak that got loose, got onto the pit exit line to hold on to it. And good save from him not to go around, running in 10th place as Skurlock is making some moves past Dean Moll, who's very high up the racetrack, I must say.
Yeah, a bit too high, I think. He might just be looking after his tyres at this stage. He might not expect to have to pit again. Just wants to keep it as clean as possible, because as we've seen, any kind of damage, any kind of hit with the wall, not just physically but psychologically, it impacts you.
I'm just loving watching Cameron Dance right now.
Yeah.
Because that car is on the absolute ragged edge, and I don't know whether it's something he's done with his setup or he's just out there having fun, but this is not the best line for tyre wear. He's going to really struggle at the end of the race if he doesn't make a pit stop, but he's hanging that car out on the absolute edge and putting on a great show for those of us watching on. Dwayne Burns and Shane Bowen looking to put on a show as well. Burns continuing to fall backwards and falling into the clutches of Shane Bowen, who will look to get the run off the inside, will get the run and the draft and the momentum across the start-finish line. Up the inside, he's going to go through turn 1, and that should be move made. We haven't really seen anyone able to hang on around the outside all race long, have we yet?
No, we certainly haven't, and the fact that Dwayne Burns keeps running wide clues me in that there might be a problem. It seems like he, over the last few laps, is just pushing way too hard into the corners, or maybe has a problem with his brake application, because running wide like that has managed to lose him an awful lot of positions. He was fighting for second place, and now he's down in 7th.
Or he's taking advice from Cameron Dance.
Possibly.
This battle, though, for 6th place is looking pretty heated. Shane Bowen leads it. Burns is there, proving a bit of a bottleneck for Skurlock and Dean Moll. Skurlock really disadvantaged himself letting his team boss go through earlier, because now he's fallen back behind Bowen and probably should be ahead of him, which means he should be ahead of Dwayne Burns as well. So it's cost him, in effect, 2 spots. And interesting tactic. Murphy feels that with that damage he's got on the car, he can't really fight as hard as he wants to. And Of course, don't forget Purnell, fresh tyres as well, so different strategies for both of them as these three are running quite close together. It seems like Dwayne Burns has recovered a bit of his pace now.
Yeah, just dialing it back a little bit, getting that mid-corner grip going. Good to see. But it doesn't look like he's going to make any move on Shane Bowen anytime soon. These guys are teammates, so they don't want to get in each other's way too badly. But Bowen is carrying a bit of damage on his car, and that's a good run from Burns, so might be a move. Once again, Burns conservative on entry, but Bowen completely lost there on the outside where there is absolutely no grip, and Purnell may get a bit of an advantage from this too. He won't. He decides to slot back in behind.
And that is Michael Skurlock there, back in behind Dean, or back in behind Shane Bowen actually. And he won't capitalise. So let's be careful. Dean Moore on those fresh tyres behind them as well. He'll be looking after them, as you mentioned. Oh, that's a slow car on the racing line on the inside of the track, and very awkward spot. That is a car. Brad Fenley, yeah, very slow, and he's lost the front end of his race car. We can see there. We'll get a replay up on the screen. And looking at where he was, I think maybe into the outside wall. No contact, and oh my word, that's a big crash. Bit of spin top action for the Twisted Key racing car there. We'll get a bit more of the picture of what's unfolded. Going down to the inside, trying to get to the inside of the car in front, and has his nose completely chopped by Takadia McCarthy, I've got to say.
Yeah, looks to me like Takadia McCarthy, he was looking to try and protect the inside, but unfortunately Fenley was already there. Here's another view. Moves down and they just make contact. That's very unfortunate, especially in a car like this. You can't really react to something like that quickly.
Can't really react that quickly to anything, really. It's one of those incidents that in oval racing occurred almost too often, where you'd have your nose chopped on entry, on exit, or sometimes even in a straight line. And one of the aspects of oval racing that's so crucial, keep yourself out of trouble. And unfortunately for Brad Fenley, nothing he could really do there. The battle for fourth place is starting to heat up. This is Cameron Dance starting to come under pressure from Chris Purnell, who's starting to turn it up now. As at this point, I'm going to stop pointing out Cameron Dance getting sideways in the corner, because it just seems like a standard thing now every time he goes through a corner.
Yeah, it's that's just what he's doing. That's how he's got his car set up, and I mean, well, it's worked for him pretty well so far. He's managed to maintain a position in the top 5 for quite some time. We just saw Brad Fenley there coming out of the pits, and Purnell suffering a little bit of an issue on the outside there, losing a bit of ground to Dance, but Dance once again wide in turns 3 and 4, so it's coming right back to Chris.
It is, and oh, who's that behind Shane Bowen? That was Skurlock taking advice from Purnell, it seems. Both of them, Skurlock off turn 4 and Purnell off turn 2, both getting really loose coming off the exit of the corner and having to go all the way to the inside to save it. And you don't want to be doing that too often. Someone else might have done it. There's a caution on track.
Yes, once again, that's a slow car in the form of Craig Hawkins, who has continued to have issues for Kinetic. It's a rotten race for him, unfortunately. Let's see what happened to him on the back stretch. One of his team cars coming up on him. And they make contact.
Whoa, that's an interesting one there.
That was John King.
That was interesting.
Was it? Yeah, it certainly was.
Yeah.
I feel like there might have been a bit of a miscommunication between them there, or
You'd
King
hope so.
maybe thought he was already past when he moved up. Either way, that's resulted in King getting into the wall as well.
Yeah, that's extremely bizarre. I mean, I can see what King might have been trying to do was to open up his entry to the corner, but at the point where they made contact, as they were almost into the corner already, there's really no point going out to the right-hand side of the track at that point. Just keeps your line on the inside, I would have thought, but maybe we'll get an explanation after the race at some point from King, but interesting for sure. He takes damage and comes down a pit road, And Marco Morgan is watching his race challenges just continue to drop off the back of him.
Yeah, a big shame for John King, but Mogren has managed to see off all of that. He remains in the lead of the race. There's been absolutely no sign of any drama for him, aside from making his way through the lapped cars earlier. He seems like he's pretty much got this race under control at the moment. Daniel Stevens, meanwhile, moving up into second. So that move to take tyres earlier on from him has managed to pay off quite well.
Yeah, it has up into P2, and coming into the pit lane was one of the lapped cars in front of Stevens, and this is an interesting top three that we have now. Daniel Stevens, who has the fresh tyres, Marco Mogren, who's been dominating this race, unchallenged on older tyres, and then Mr. Slidey Boy in third place, Cameron Dance.
Yeah, what a top three it is, and I mean, if you were talking purely in terms of numbers, you'd put your money on Stevens because he has the fresher tyres, but Mogren, with the amount of pace that he is still able to extract from that car, even after 100 laps of racing, is quite simply immense. So there's going to be a titanic fight for the lead of this race.
It would be, and I'm hoping Stevens could find just a little bit more to get up there and make this move stick. Are the lights out on the pace car? No, they're not going to go one more time around. And who's your money on, Reese?
Oh God! I mean, you wouldn't put it past Mogren at this stage. He's certainly done everything right so far, but I feel like Stevens could throw a cat amongst the pigeons if he decides to turn up the aggression. And I feel like Cameron Dance, though he is spectacular to watch in this race, he has not been able to move forward. He's only been fighting off advances from behind. So I think we might see the top two break away a little again.
Yeah, if Chris Purnell can get by Cameron Dance, we could see him go with them, because Purnell has had some pretty decent race pace today. And similarly so, Dean Mole is only in 6th place. He's still there or thereabouts, and a couple of quick passes, he'll be right up there with those guys.
He certainly will. I mean, we did say further towards the start that we should be looking for those drivers on fresher tyres. Have a look at how much the field has closed up on the run up to the restart. Dance feels that he needs a bit of a clearer view of the racetrack. So not exactly single file, but Mogren is away. Absolutely blasts off. Fantastic start from Mogren, and Stevens had no answer for that. Dance slots in right behind, and Dance muscling his car there to the inside and getting a good exit. I'll have to eat my words and choke on them, because Cameron Dance could get into second here, and he has. Oh, for how long though?
He's making it look very spectacular as he does it, and that was all from the restart. You mentioned Cameron Dance wanted a better view of the racetrack. He was getting a better view of the race leader. You can't see the race leader when he's tucked up in 3rd place, especially with a single file restart. So that's what Dance was doing, and as long as he had no overlap on the car in front or behind, perfectly legal and a good strategy.
Well, it's worked out well for Dance. He now occupies 2nd place as Mogren just jets away there in the lead. But Purnell and Burns and Mole all fighting together now, and Mole sides his way up the inside on those fresher tyres. Dwayne Burns stuck out wide, so that's another position there for Dean Mole, and he could potentially have another 2 waiting for him here.
He
Have a
could.
look at Purnell.
Oh yeah, Purnell cutting back, looking to get the run on Daniel Stevens, who's just struggling to switch these tyres on, it seems like, off this restart. Coming under all sorts of pressure. Look at Dean Mole now trying to get to the inside of Chris Purnell. Through 3 and 4 they go. Preferred line for Dean Mole, and
Stevens had a bit of a lose there on exit. So there's a bit of a problem there for him as well. Sorry to interrupt, Ryan, but yeah, Dean Mole is making those tyres work for him beautifully. He's now cleared Purnell, and Stevens could be his in a lap.
It could. Dean Mole has been the only person really to match Marco Mogren all race long, so it's not surprising to see him working his way through the field now. And we'll see him probably make a move into 3 and 4 next time by. look for a run through 1 and 2. As they're all pretty much single file now, no side-by-side action through this field, but the battle is raging for 3rd place, and he almost gets into the back of him in the middle of the corner, and that will compromise the run that he would have been looking to get into 3 and 4. Won't get it, and Chris Purnell is just watching and waiting and ready to pounce at the earliest sign or any sign of a mistake from either of these two drivers. Bit of a wiggle for Daniel Stevens again coming off turn 4, but just enough of a gap to keep himself ahead for now.
Yeah, only just though, because you can see through turns 1 and 2, Mole, especially right in the middle of it, makes a big lunge, and part of that is down to the throttle application. Once you start getting onto the throttle, the car rotates a bit, and you want to use that rotation to your advantage. A little bit of trouble for Chris Purnell, stuck on the outside on the exit of turn 4, so Burns is going to go right back through into 5th place. And it looks like Stevens and Mole up ahead. Mole making another lunge in the mid-corner. He's actually gotten a good jump there, but still no position gained. He hasn't been able to get that run on Stevens. And you see Stevens actually keeping to a narrower line all the way around the circuit. He's barely going near the wall now.
Yeah, and they're both catching Cameron Dance too, so this is about to be a 3-car battle for 2nd place on this racetrack. And you've got to say the fastest guy of them all is sat back in 5th place at the moment. 4th place, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, certainly. Dean Mole just not able to get the run once again as Stevens now shows the nose a bit to Dance up ahead. Dance running a bit wide on entry, but squaring off that exit nicely. He's gotten into a good rhythm there, but his pace once again is lacking. He's running about a 10th slower than the drivers behind him who are starting to get held up. Daniel Stevens, I think Dean Mole's starting to get a bit frustrated because it is a very close pack behind the 66 at the moment.
Well, understandably so. Look at the lead that Marco Mogret has. He leads by 4.2 seconds already.
Yeah.
And he was half a second quicker last time by, which is just ridiculous. And now, to the outside looks Dean Mole on Daniel Stevens. If he makes this stick, that'll be truly remarkable. And it looks like he's got it done on those fresh tyres. No one's been able to hold it even around the outside, but Dean Mole says, hey, I can make an overtake around the outside here at Milwaukee Mile. Good move for him. Next up will be Cameron Dance. As no contact behind him! Onto the grass goes.
Oh, they keep going though.
And Dwayne Burns, they've kept going indeed. No caution. Chris Purnell to take evasive action too. And suddenly that the face of that pack of cars just changed drastically there.
It certainly did. We'll get a replay soon, but yeah, wow. That was almost another caution. We could have spent another couple of laps sitting here wondering what might be. But Cameron Dance facing big pressure from Dean Mole now, just up ahead. And we will get a replay of that incident just earlier.
There's trouble for Chris Purnell. Sideways on a big crash collected by Dwayne Burns. Not Dwayne Burns, sorry. Collected by Daniel Stevens, who is still rolling around the track. And he lands on his roof now, and 2 cars out. Here's the replay of that earlier contact. That was just Dwayne Burns getting to the back of Stevens, who had to check up. And that's the catalyst for Daniel Stevens getting involved in this next incident with Chris Purnell.
Yes, indeed. Coming into turn 1, Purnell running wide there. And coming off the exit.
It was on the
next lap. The exit of 3 and 4. So it's a very close battle that's going on between these 3 at the moment. And Bowen going very deep into the turns. Purnell doesn't have much of a response for it. But then there's a bit of a wiggle on the exit, and Purnell actually makes contact with the wall sideways on the front straight. That was a huge crash. Wow.
Look how long Stevens rolls for.
Oh, he's still going. He's still going. There we go.
I hope he's not in VR.
Yeah, I hope so too, because that's certainly not what you want to see as Marco Mogren, our race leader, is pitted. Cameron Dance follows him in too. There's another view of that crash. That was quite spectacular. Here is the view from Purnell's perspective. So, he didn't even touch the wall. It was just the car balance getting out of whack and sent sky high.
Just too eager on the throttle, got a tank slapper and could not hold on to it. A little bit unfortunate to be collected by Daniel Stevens. And do we recall that incident that Purnell had with Bowen earlier? Yeah. And I said I don't think he took his spare car. I think he'll be thankful he didn't, if he in fact opted not to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thinking behind it. You don't want to take your spare car too early, especially in a race like this. It's a long race with a lot that can go wrong. So Dean Mole assumes the lead of this race, as there are only 4 cars left in this field that have not pitted yet.
It is Shane Bowen, Michael Skurlock, Mirko Dornak and Dwayne Burns all yet to make a pit stop. A number of guys out there with 1 stop. A couple have made 2 already. Filotto, Chris Purnell. Chris Purnell wouldn't be planning on making 2 stops. He's been forced to do it by that incident. But 7 stops, I'm saying, for Craig Hawkins, who has finally retired that car after doing all those pit stops.
Yeah, big shame for him. Brad Fenley making his way out of the pits, as is Phil Otto. And I fear that it might be race done for Chris Purnell because his virtual driver is not sitting in his car at the moment.
You would have had to take a tow back to pit lane too, so it's most likely waiting for that. But
oh yeah, there we go. Just done
now
it.
He's back in the...
And both him and Daniel Stevens taking service. There goes Stevens. Away he goes. Purnell having to wait a little bit longer. I'll tell you what, neither of those drivers will be too happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah. The first part of this sentence may sound a bit off. Just let me finish it. How good is this? Marco Mogren's in 9th. But it means we're going to see him slice his way through the pack because he has such a speed advantage over the field. We're going to see some fantastic racing here as he makes his way through. And Dean Mole, who arguably is the 2nd fastest car out on track, is leading this race. So we're probably going to see a gap open up from Dean Mole to the pack behind, and then eventually Marco Mogren's going to come through and appear in 2nd place and start hunting Mole down. And it's going to be a fantastic battle to watch.
Yeah, you make a good point there. We have not seen Mogren actually racing anyone in this race so far, so be interesting to see how he makes his way through this field of cars with the excellent pace that he has and those fresh tyres. Pace car is now coming in. Dean Mole backing the pack up. Another single file restart for us. The green flag flies and Mole is right on it, actually getting a slight jump there over Shane Bowen, but one missed gear can make all the difference. Remember, this car has an H-pattern manual transmission. Already Marco Mogren making a move down on the inside. We'll see how his pace difference here works out in the real world. Already, he's looking quite calm. Looking quite calm.
The shovel in front, car around.
Caution. Oh, that's Cameron Dance.
Is upside down. On the fence on the inside. That looked like chaos. Dwayne Burns is around too. Man. I held my breath for a second because I was watching from the blip view and I thought maybe Mogren might have been involved, but it looks like he snuck through it around the outside. We'll get a replay here, like motor simulation. Burns coming into the corner, gets up into the back of Dornak, rotates him around. Dornak saves it. Burns doesn't. Collected by 2 cars. Cameron Dance, the 2nd car to come through, launches onto his roof. That 1st car to come through, not sure who it was. It was not Dornak, he was involved initially.
The 1st car to come through, that was John King. So that was lucky for King. Just managed to escape on the inside line. There it is. And you see Dance tumbling over there. A big shame for those guys. I mean, it all started from Burns just going a bit too deep into the corner.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a huge chain reaction.
Fast repair.
Yeah, it seems like he did there was a little bit of maybe a glancing hit for King.
He got some airtime.
Yeah, he certainly did. Yeah. But
how sturdy are these cars that are 50 years old?
I'm surprised. I'm incredibly surprised at how well these cars have fared, but I guess the old adage that they built them tough back then rings true, right?
Yeah, well, there's only there's only 12 of them still around. There's only 12 Lotus 49s left in the real world, and only one from the initial build in 1967, which is currently on display at the New Hampshire Motor Museum. So if you want to go see these cars in real life, go check out that museum. Otherwise, find a lot of money and buy one of the other 11 that are lying around.
Yeah, and you're going to need a lot of money for them as well, because the Lotus Type 49, it was a successful machine, and it set the standard for what Formula One would become in the 70s and 80s. It was the first car to use the Ford Cosworth DFV V8, which eventually became the go-to power unit in Formula One for the next 20 years.
It did, and I know it was very revolutionary as well with the way the car was built.
Yeah, first car to...
A lot of technical jargon that I don't understand. Maybe you do.
Yeah, I don't understand much of it, but I do know that the 49 was one of, if not the first race cars to make the engine a stressed part of the chassis. Before that point, the engine was put in its own little compartment and separated from the suspension and the bodywork and all of that, but the Lotus 49 changed that by just bolting the engine onto the end of the chassis.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say, but couldn't remember all the technical stuff. So thank you, Reese, for providing the
no worries,
knowledgeable side to this conversation. But yeah, it's a revolutionary car and a great part of Formula One history for that exact reason. And so many great drivers have driven it. Jim Clark, Graham Hill, both drove this car, and there's a lot of talent just in those two names alone.
Yeah, for sure. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance has gone 2 laps down in this race. So has Daniel Stevens. And considering that we're on lap 128 at the moment, I think the chances of them coming back from that are slim.
Yeah, it's not looking promising for Cameron Dance, but I'm sure he'll give it a red hot go. He's certainly proven that he's not afraid of that. We're going to get a restart this time, though, with 73 laps to go when they cross the line. Dean Mole looks to get a bit of a better jump than he did last time by, and he does get a good jump, not as good as Mogram was getting earlier on. Skurlock is right in behind Shane Bowen coming through turn 1. Behind them, Mirko Dornack had Cameron Dance, a laps car, almost alongside him.
Well, Marco Mogren, meanwhile, continues to make his way up. He's just behind his teammate John King, side by side, just ahead of them. And, oh, that's quite the battle there between Bowen and Skurlock. Bowen getting the move done very nicely on the inside. Dornack, meanwhile, fighting hard with Dance, the lapped car. And Dance, you can see he's wasting no time trying to make his way and get some of his laps back. I don't know if Dornack will be too happy with that, because he's actually got the over-under here. But losing
hold on to it.
Oh, he holds on to it. Good to see. But that's another position there for Marco Mogren, who just breezes past him.
Yeah, Dornack almost suffered the same fate as his team boss, Chris Purnell there. Lucky to hold on to that one. But now Mogren moves up into 4th place on this racetrack, and he's making quick work of these guys. Of course, the two cars in front, Skurlock and Bowen, haven't pitted. Dean Mole has fresher tyres than those two. So the pace difference between the current race leader and Mogren won't be quite as significant as the pace difference we're seeing around these guys he's racing now.
Yes, indeed. Mogren just made his way past Dance, who slid his way up the track a little bit. Skurlock and Bowen once again for P2 and P3. Skurlock with the advantage on the inside there. Oh, has he gone over the lines a bit too much there? Not quite sure, but Bowen will have to concede that position for now. Skurlock's pace at the moment is looking very good.
Yeah, good pace from Skurlock that he's showing at the moment. I know the Illusion cars are set up quite nicely. They works hard on those setups. And They got them working exactly how they wanted to, and they're pretty happy with them. So Skurlock's definitely showing that now. Look at Mogren trying to throw it down to the inside of Shane Bowen, forcing the issue, forcing a gap to open up, and moving through into P3 is Marco Mogren, and a 29.9 last time by, even with that dirty air of those cars in front of him. Absolutely flying. Dean Mole only about a 10th slower though, so not too much of a difference there.
Well, there's now only one car between the two kinetic machines, and that is the 451 of Michael Skurlock, who we should point out, he is one of the guys who hasn't pitted yet. Still no sign of that damage on the front of his car being repaired, so just goes to show it didn't mean much to him.
No, it didn't. He was lucky to get away with that, I'd say, as looking further back. This is Mirko Dortnack that were on board. They're going to take a punt and say Dortnack from the green helmet.
Oh no, it's
We're
King.
on board with John King. They both got green helmets. You picked two worst cars, Jay, to go on board with. You confused me again.
Oh dear. Well, we'll go back to Mogren though, because he is right on the back of Skurlock now, and Mogren firing it straight to the inside. I think Skurlock conceded that. Not much point in trying to defend hard against the former race leader on fresh tyres, who sets a 30.1 on his way to trying to take over the lead, but that's still pretty quick considering he had to make a pass. His last lap was a 29.8.
Yeah, 3,000 slower than the race leader. So I expect we'll see this gap come down pretty quickly, and it'll be a battle for P3 behind them. A move being made now between John King and Mirko Dortnack. King getting to the inside will have the momentum, or should do, down this main straight, but Dortnack's fighting back on the outside and drive it in deep into the corner. John King drives it in deep too. They almost make contacts in the middle of the corner, but eventually John King makes this spot up, and Dortnack will have to slot in behind him now.
Dortnack almost went for completely straight lining the exit, and I think he would have if King wasn't still down there on the inside. It is a wide track with a lot of experimentation and lines that you can do, but unfortunately, if there is a kinetic car below you, you can't exactly go through them. Meanwhile, Gavin Barber is making his way back out onto the track after spending a large amount of time in the pits, and that car doesn't look too hot at the moment. I did notice a little bit of bouncing as he came out of the pits, and there's still a bit of bouncing through the corners, so an 8-minute pit stop for Gavin Barber. I think he might bring that thing straight back in. Skurlock, meanwhile.
Skurlock.
Oh, he's behind Mogren.
Slow lap from Mogren, a 30.8.
Yeah, very slow lap from Mogren. I wonder what the cause of that was. Looks to me like, just going back, he actually went a bit too deep into turn 3. It's the reason why Skurlock has gotten a bit of a... has gotten the gap down again, but I get the feeling that's not going to last very long.
It won't, but if Mogren continues to make mistakes, Skurlock is incredibly consistent and will hound him for every mistake he makes. He didn't actually lose too much time that time, by, even with the no mistakes there for Mogren. Maybe he's feeling the pressure a little bit, trying to get back to the lead. There's 60 laps to go. 30-second lap times is not too much. It's about a quarter of the race to go.
Yeah, and a lap around here takes about 30 seconds for a fast driver, so all up, a race length of 90 minutes or so, of course not including cautions, so time is definitely running out for these guys. 60 laps does seem like a big number, but at an oval, it just flies by. Here's Dwayne Burns and Sean O'Hara then for 8th place and 7th. Dwayne Burns going straight to the inside there, and O'Hara, I don't think, wanted to fight too hard.
No, just happy to give that spot up and let Burns go through. We know Burns has good pace, just unfortunately was involved in that incident earlier on, so would expect him to start making his way back up to the field as well. As I'm having a look at the lap times for Marco Mogren, and lapping pretty well, but he's not that much quicker than Dean Mole. And Mole's doing a great job at the moment to just do what he can. Let's see what it was this time by. It was a 30.048 for Dean Mole. And Mogren was a 29.901. So now we're starting to turn it up.
Yeah, now we are. Mole has held station very well at the front of the field. You can actually probably get a sense for how quick he could be if he didn't have Mogren in front of him at the start of the race. But Mogren, once again, he's just got that little pace advantage, which around a place like this is worth absolutely everything. So Mogren's well and truly left Skurlock behind now, and looks to me like Shane Bowen is starting to fall back into the clutches of John King, because his last lap, a 30.278, John King, 30.084. So these guys potentially coming together for fourth place.
Yeah, it looks like they are, and John King working that wheel hard, as we can see from the onboard shot there. Trying to stop the car from getting loose on the exit. Trying to get as much draft as you can off Shane Bowen. And then we're just looking for a bit of clean air through the corner. Maybe on a lane, half a lane lower or higher compared to Shane Bowen. Just get some clean air on that car. I think the dirty air of these guys is affecting them just a little bit. Certainly enough to warrant changing the corner up just a bit.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it looks like King has a good run here off the exit. Bowen, unfortunately, a little bit of wayward behavior in his car, making him come a cropper. So King immediately there through to fourth place, and he's looking smooth and controlled as ever.
And Dean Mole, last time by, did his fastest lap of the race, a 29.931. So he's flying out there. Marco Mogren's doing a 29.986 out there. Michael Skurlock's got nothing for these two. But he'd see, I think the Skurlock, the goal for him is going to be make your car last to the end and hope something happens between these front two drivers, because we've seen today passing can go wrong and it is easy to make a mistake. These cars aren't the most technologically advanced cars in the world, and so they don't handle the bumps quite as great as literally any other car in iRacing. So it can definitely throw itself into the wall before you even know it.
Yeah, well, I think Burns and Dortanack will have to be careful of that, because they're coming together now as well. Dortanack, you can see he's calmed down a bit there, but I don't think he has the pace to justify going up there, as Mogren does the fastest lap of the race once again. What a lap from Marco Mogren once again. I can't quite believe this guy's pace.
Yeah, he's got the gap down to 1.7 seconds now. And he's absolutely flying. There's a 29.867, which is phenomenal. Absolutely most of the other guys out in Shark are running in the low 30s, so he's worked hard on this race, I would say, and his effort is paying off here.
Certainly is. So Burns and Dortanack, this could be decided pretty soon. They did go side by side once, just half a lap ago. It feels to me like Burns has a lot of faith in the speed of his car, because through he goes once again, and he hasn't overshot this time, so he'll be able to keep that position.
Yeah, Warner keeps it relative ease as they are side by side in front of him. I believe that's a lap car up there. And the gap at the lead has come down to 1.3 seconds now, so he's taken a huge chunk out of him on that time by. Because yeah, Dean Mole runs wide through 1 and 2 there, and the gap will come down again, I dare say, for Dean Mole. He's going to come under pressure soon. He's got to figure out how best to defend this racetrack for what will probably be about 40-45 laps to the end of the race.
And I do want to talk briefly about Skurlock as well, because he's one of those guys that hasn't pitted. Well, now that we're at this point of the race, I don't think he would have much to gain out of pitting now. So his only choice really is to stay out. Unless, of course, the guys in front of him come into the pits at the end, in which case he'll follow them.
Yeah, I can't really see anyone pitting from this stage unless maybe one of the guys further back would pit. That's probably it. But you wouldn't want to pit from the top 4 or 5 spots because there's big risk of losing a lot of spots, and overtaking isn't particularly easy, so to speak, and it will take you a few laps to get back up there. With only 40 laps to go, you might not find yourself gaining too much at all. And as you mentioned, Skurlock is probably committed now to the strategy of not pitting ever.
Well, be interesting to see what the shape of his tires are after that, and what his pace is like. But we're continuing to see the gap at the lead close lap on lap on lap, because Marko Mogren, aside from that slight mistake earlier, has been inch perfect. Seems like he's barely doing anything to the car. He's just that is amazing. It is super smooth, isn't it?
I was just going to mention, yeah, that's ridiculous. We said the onboard with everyone else where they're fighting the car. And we can see from this onboard that Mogren is having to do almost no corrections. A little one on the quarter entry, straighten this wheel out on corner exit, and it just sicks and a little bit of a slide, but that's just he's driving really hard, and that car is absolutely planted, and he's knocked an entire 10th off his previous fastest lap. So whatever he's done to that car, it's working an absolute treat.
Absolutely is. Dean Moll, I think, will be in a bit of trouble very, very soon. But still, it's a 1-2 for Kinetic, so they'll definitely be happy with the way things are proceeding at the moment. Back in the field, Cameron Dance in P12, stuck in the middle of a pack. Shane Bowen in 5th place. Daniel Stevens pressuring Cam for what is now 11th. And he almost went right into the back of him there, having to contend with the likes of Bowen here, who is currently in the top 5.
Always tricky to navigate through lap traffic when the lap traffic is having a battle position itself. So tricky for Bowen, tricky for Stevens and for Dance to get out of the way while not losing a ton of time to their competitors, which is a bit of an art you need to pick up on iRacing. Stevens will want to tuck in now behind Shane Bowen and Dwayne Burns and follow them through on Cameron Dance.
Yeah, problem is, Dance has gotten an excellent gap over these guys. He's still driving at some pretty quick paces, Dance, and continuing to basically back the car into the turns, but unfortunately, Bowen's made a bit of a mistake there. That's going to allow Burns on through. Stevens, though, having to wait a little bit. Bowen's stuck on the outside, so not a good situation for him to be in, and that's 2 positions lost there in a straight and 2 corners.
Gap for the lead has come all the way down to 3.5 tenths now. That is Dean Moll that we are watching. We're watching both of them as they make their way through. The back straightaway. Marko Mogren is right in his real wheel tracks now, and now he's going to start to set himself up to make the move. And how hard will they fight, if at all? Because as you mentioned, Reese, they are teammates, so they don't want to ruin a 1-2 for Kinetic here.
No, certainly not. But it looks like the pace and the smoothness of Mogren, it doesn't seem like anyone else has a match for it. So if a move is made, it will have to be pretty decisive. I get the feeling that Moll won't fight him too hard at this stage. They do still have 39 laps to go in this race, so there's still some to be gained.
Yeah, there is, and we'll see again as Mogren closes up through 1 and 2, and taking a slightly different line, using a little bit more of the track is Mogren through 1 and 2, then through 3 and 4. He closes right up. He's a lot later on the brakes, a lot wider through the corner. cuts back for the exit to get that shallow line and the run, and he's got a bit of a run. Won't quite be close enough though, although he's having a look, and Mole had to move up the track to avoid making contact, and great heads up driving for Mole, because that could have been catastrophic for the two teammates.
Absolutely could have been, but they'll stay like that for at least another corner or so. I tell you what, that was a big statement from Mogren though, having that look up the inside. Yes.
They're going to fight.
Yeah, looks like they are going to fight, because Mole was able to maintain that momentum very nicely on the outside. First time we've seen him use that outside line in a while.
Well, we saw him make the move on, I believe it was Daniel Stevens, who went around the outside of earlier in the race, so we know he's good out there. He's just got to be smooth and consistent. Don't make any mistakes, because the longer this race goes, the more pressure is going to be on Marco Mogren, because he's been such a dominant driver in today's race. There's going to be an expectation on him to really win this one. I mean, he's been so fast.
A little bit of a mistake from Mole up in front of him as they go by the lapped car of Drew Lalonde, currently sitting in position 9. So Mole, oh, there we go, running wide on the exit, and that is for the race lead. Marco Mogren through once again. And it looks like Mole is not trying to fight it there, so P1 and P2 resume normal operations.
Well, that was a relatively simple move for Marco Morgan in the end. Not really any fight put up by Dean Mole. As further back, John King is catching Michael Skurlock at a fairly handy rate of knots in the battle for third place. The gap is currently 1.1 seconds. Skurlock was 2/10 slower last time around, so he's struggling a little bit. And remember, no pit stop for Skurlock. John King has made one. And I wonder whether Skurlock is running into a bit of a cliff with the tyre wear.
That may be a possibility, as his previous laps have not been excellent. He ranging from low to mid 30s to even into the 31s a couple of times. So Skurlock starting to run into a bit of trouble here, and King 30.12 on the last lap. Skurlock goes 30.3 and King goes 30.073. So more of a gap taken out.
King's absolutely flying on there. He's got that car hooked up nicely, and he's running about the same pace as the leaders of the race, in fact. For comparison, Dean Mole and Marco Mogren, well, that lap isn't a great example, but Mogren ran a 29.888, but Dean Mole at 30.1. So John King has great pace in his car right now, and these lapped cars will just be putting both of them off a bit. Who can navigate them the best?
Who can navigate them the best indeed? Riley Curtis will undoubtedly be letting King through soon. Skurlock goes through on Brad Fenley. These guys fighting for 14th and 15th, and Curtis with a little bit of an issue there. Makes it easy for John King to go through.
He does, and this time by for Michael Skurlock, 30.597. A bit of that will be a result of the lap traffic, because John King was a 494. Still takes 10th out of them, but that lap traffic really, really held both of them up there.
Certainly did. The gap between them has not had a huge alteration, so they've gotten through there nice and cleanly. Good to see. But King is still chipping away at Skurlock in terms of pace, so it is a potential move for third place further on down the track. Could we see an all-kinetic podium in this one?
Certainly a possibility. They've got to set up working nicely, and John King's coming on strong right when it matters at the end of the race here. Dwayne Burns is back there in 5th place, almost untroubled. He's got quite a bit of a buffer back in 6th place. It's about 1.5 seconds, which is plenty enough on a short track like this. And then there's only 8 cars in the lead lap. There's no one 1 lap down. Drew Lalonde is in 9th, 2 laps off the pace.
Just goes to show the amount of drama that's happened in this race so far, and the pace difference as well. I mean, it really takes something to be fast in this machine, and the likes of Mogren, Mole, Skurlock, King, Burns, Bowen, they've all shown that they've got what it takes in this old machinery.
Yeah, they really have, and it's not over yet. There's still 27 laps to go when they cross the line, and a lot can happen in 27 laps, there is. A lot can happen in 27 laps, and we recall the last round of the majors as Skurlock runs very wide there. There was a lot of drama in the closing laps of that one. Skurlock looking like he's just given up the ghost here. He's going to keep the car wide and let John King go by, so there's no battle in the move for fourth place, for third place, and it's an all-connect podium now. Caution!
Oh, and right on cue, the caution comes out. So here we go. This will be interesting. I'm going to call it. Everyone's going to come in. Everyone.
No, that was an interesting crash. Ducati and McCarthy up onto his lead. He was only there for about a second. We might not catch it, and unfortunately we won't. We'll catch the tail end of it, I think. Right. I don't know how he's ended up on top of the barriers.
This car does some weird things sometimes, and I think that might be one of them. Well, Marco Mogren in the lead of this one. Will he go for the pits? No.
I thought surely Mole would come in, and that would drag everyone else in behind them. John King doesn't pit. Skurlock doesn't pit. Maybe the pits weren't open. Maybe they hadn't quite caught the pace car.
Yeah, they're probably waiting for the next lap. Yeah, because yeah, go on. Sorry.
I would expect Mogren to stay out purely because his tires are much fresher than everyone else. He can't afford to come in because what he does, a lot of the other people will counteract. Dean Mole, on the other hand, he's going to want to come in. He's really got nothing to lose. He's running in second place. He hasn't got the pace of Marco Mogren by any stretch of the imagination. So once he comes in, I would expect that to then trigger everyone else to pit with him. And Marco Mogren will very likely end up as the only car not to make a pit stop.
Well, we'll see what happens when they come to the exit of this corner. Mogren staying down tight, but avoiding the pits, and it looks like Mole is too. But from Lalonde there, Skurlock as well going in. So, well, I guess once he lost that podium, I guess Skurlock realised he had nothing to lose either.
Yeah, most likely, and don't forget Skurlock has that damage too, so he might just pick up that spare car now too. And I tried putting my strategy hat on, Reese, and I've missed by a long way.
It's okay. It was okay. We've all been there. Mirko Dortanak also coming into the pits as well for some new rubber. So those guys at Illusion trying their luck in the last quarter of this one. We'll see how far they can get up the field.
Nice fresh car for Michael Skurlock too. We'll see whether he somehow finds some more pace now, whether that was affecting him in that 451 car. I think Marco Mogren's got to be feeling pretty comfortable about this restart because D Mole didn't have anything for him before the restart. I don't see how I can have anything for him after it. There's a car in between Dean Mole and John King. I think the interesting one will unfold between King and Mole because King was lapping about the same pace as Dean Mole before that caution came out, and we'd seen him make the move on Michael Skurlock and move forward pretty nicely.
Yeah, we should look out for John King, I think, in the final bits of this race. King's always been one of those guys that sticks it out to the end, and when he hasn't had some bad luck befall him, you can always count on him to keep it smooth, keep it clean. So, eyes on the number 6, I guess, in the final 22 laps of this one. It's amazing. We've almost gotten to the very end. But safety car will be pulling in at the end of this corner, and it's going to be, I think, a scene that we've seen quite a few times already in this race. Marco Mogren backing up the field, Dean Mole leaving a slight gap. And once the green flag flies, well, Mogren's decided to go a bit early, and he's coordinated that start with Mole. They've managed to jump all of them.
Yeah, they have, and Gavin Barber is still there in front of John King, who's got Cameron Dance right up behind him. Neither of those guys are for position. It'll be throwing him off just a little bit. Dwayne Burns is in 4th place, and he'll want to capitalise on this and get to the back of John King. But going to be tricky with those two guys side by side in front of him. Now he goes by Gavin Barber car. Now it's just Cameron Dance, who we know has pace. So he's a tricky laps car to work around.
Yeah, 2 laps down though, so he's definitely not in this race at the moment. He's actually the leading lapped car now, so you have to, I guess you have to consider your priorities if you're in Cameron Dance's position. Do you go as fast as you can, try and get as far up as you can, or just concede and let these guys go? Because it's obvious they're going to come together pretty soon, but Dance getting runs on John King there.
Yeah, good run for Cameron Dance. Marco Mogren and Dean Mole both just lapped in the 29.7s. Astonishing pace.
Great.
As John King will be loving Cameron Dance right now, because he's providing a buffer in between himself and Dwayne Burns, and Daniel Stevens almost drilled the back of Dwayne Burns as sideways goes Dean Mole on the exit of turn 2. We saw it on the back of the shot there. He's driving that car hard, trying to get up to the back of Marco Mogren. No dice for him there. Michael Skurlock with those fresh tyres, what can he do? He's back in 7th place at the moment. He pitted from 4th, and now he's going to be 6th in a second.
Yes, indeed. Already making those moves, and Sean O'Hara with little choice but to concede that position. I'll tell you what, the rate of knots that, oh goodness, O'Hara's going to get it back, and that's something that I've seen happen a lot with Skurlock in this. He was just a bit too eager on the throttle in the mid-corner. It just pushed the car wide coming off onto the exit. But considering Mole's pace on fresh tyres when he came in, the fact that he was able to make up so many positions, I still keep an eye on Michael Skurlock.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think, though, he's 6.7 seconds off the lead already, and with only a handful of laps remaining, won't be enough to get up to the lead. Might be enough, though, to challenge for the podium again and knock off this kinetic 1-2-3 that we have right now. Cameron Dance is being an absolute nuisance to Dwayne Burns. He's just sat there in front of him, and Dwayne Burns will be getting so frustrated right now because Cameron Dance is just providing this incredible roadblock that he cannot get around. And the tricky thing is, Cameron Dance, if he just takes his normal line, it's impossible to pass because we've seen him sliding the car. He's driving it in really deep and really hard, and that means that Dwayne Burns is going to struggle to outbrake him.
Yeah, Burns would have to concentrate on his exits or hope that Cam makes a mistake at this stage, because blue flag rules in oval racing, not quite the same as on the road. There isn't an impetus to let lapping cars by in oval racing. So Burns really did not come off well from that. Going to lose a position, or no, not a position. He is going side by side though with Daniel Stevens, who sits in P10.
Lapped cars not being nice to Dwayne Burns at the moment.
Cam Dance has caught back up a little bit to John King too, so have to wait to see how that one goes, because Dance and Stevens, remember, they're battling for position as well. Another new fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, from Marco Mogren, a 29.713. So, losing absolutely none of his pace from earlier.
I think the biggest question at the end of the race is whether Morgan can get into the sixes.
Yeah, I think so. That's the only challenge I think Mogren is facing at the moment. Can he set faster laps? Well, he just did another 29.7, so he seems in good form right now.
He really does, and Michael Skurlock is catching Shane Bowen extremely quickly and is charged to come back through the field. Bowen is, of course, the only other car that hasn't made a pit stop, and so this is the biggest difference on tyre wear in the field. Skurlock, the last car to pit. Bowen, the only car not to pit, so I don't expect this to be particularly difficult here for Michael Skurlock. He'll want to get it done really quickly though, because he does have a chance of getting to back John King and Dwayne Burns.
Certainly does, and remember Bowen is carrying a bit of damage as well, so that'll be affecting his pace slightly too. Skurlock looks like I was about to say he wasn't driving too hard into the corners, but then he had a little bit of a slide on entry. He's making good use of that grip though. Bit of a wiggle out of turn 4, but he's got that car balanced very nicely on those newer tyres.
Gary does. It'll feel like he's got all the grip in the world with this car now, all those fresh tyres after running around for what was 175 odd laps on old tyres, and finally comes in with 15 to 25 to go. Won't have as much grip as he would have liked, not certainly what he's used to with stock car racing and a lot of road racing, but certainly a big advantage, and we see him closing up onto the back of Shane Bowen. The advantage seems to be coming in diminishing returns right now though for Skurlock. He's edging closer, but the advantage seems to be getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, well, as those tyres come up to temperature and as he pushes ever harder, it'll go past the optimum temperature, but Bowen making a mistake in the mid-corner. That's let Skurlock go on through. Will he be able to maintain it? Let's see how hard Bowen decides to go into turn 1. He does go in reasonably hard, but there is absolutely no grip up there on that line. So Skurlock then back into P5, sorry. Yep,
Easy move for Skurlock, and here's the battle for third place. Dwayne Burns is right in behind John King. Cameron Dance is past King. King must have made a mistake because the last lap was a 31.3, which is about a second slower than you'd expect them to be running. That lap was 2 tenths slower than what the car behind was doing.
Yeah, he ran wide in 3 and 4.
Yeah, but now look, here comes Dwayne Burns. King's going to cover that inside line, and Dwayne Burns is going to have to be forced a long way round. He backs off early. Maybe look for the cut back here to get a late apex, get the power down early. But it looks like a good exit for John King.
Yeah, good exit, but certainly not over by any stretch, because Burns, it seems, has ruffled King's feathers a little bit. We saw a bit of a slide in turns 3 and 4 from King, so it might not be over. Burns running incredibly close to the wall there. He might have to stay a little bit further down.
Yeah, we saw Matthew Clowett showed us that you don't want to get anywhere near that wall because it will ruin your day. Burns has the pace over John King right now. 5.5 laps to go in this race. He's running out of time, and he's going to need to send one up the inside at some point. But the issue for them is if he loses momentum, he's going to have Daniel Stevens trying to get alongside him, and that's not even for position.
Yeah, that is an issue that he'll be facing. Also, the potential threat from Michael Skurlock further back, because remember, he has those new tyres, and look at the gap that he has managed to pull on Shane Bowen already with those new tyres. So Skurlock running low 1 minute 30s, round about the same pace that King and Burns are doing. If they end up slowing each other up, Skurlock will be right in on it. I'm seeing smoke up ahead. Oh, Ryan DeCartier McCarthy has had an engine blown. He's going to go straight into the pits there.
Oh wow, he's lucky to get that back to pit lane and coast that one round, and that will end his day for sure. Unfortunate for him, right on board with Dwayne Burns in behind John King. Look at the different lines they're taking. Look at the run that Burns has. King again goes defensive, and Burns is going to try the outside. He can't get it done around the outside there, not with how close their tyre wear is. He's going to have to force the issue and try and muscle that car to the inside.
Well, we've got Cameron Dance coming back into the picture again too, because King starting to catch back up to the back of that orange number 27, and King's making very good use of that inside defensive line, I have to say. He's straight-lining his exits as much as possible, and even though Burns is getting good runs on him, he's able to maintain that position. That's the crucial part. Dance might have a bit of an influence on this, though. Oh, or will he? No. Lets off the brakes, allows King by. But Burns doesn't have quite the same luxury. That's going to be annoying for Burns.
Yeah, that's probably going to put to bed that battle for third place, because there is only a couple of laps to go in this race. Marco Mogren's going around turn 4 now to begin his final lap.
And what a final lap this will be for Marco Mogren. This is absolutely wonderful performance from the number 419 in position 1. I can't think of a more flawless oval drive that I've seen from one person than from Marco Mogren in sim racing. This will be a well-deserved victory for him as he rounds the final turn. Marco Mogren, your winner for round 12 of the Majors Series. Tony Bettenhausen 200 at the Milwaukee Mile goes to Kinetic. Dean Mole crossing the line in second, and John King, well, he managed to hold off advances and lock out the podium for Kinetic. Fantastic stuff. And a great P5 for Michael Skurlock too.
Dwayne Burns will come home fourth as Bowen finishes in style in 6th place. O'Hara 7th. From Dortanacker was the last of the lead lap cars, and it was all those guys that had issues at some stage during this race, led by Dance and Stevens inside the top 10.
Formation flying for Kinetic there. Always a good sight to see when a team celebrates in that manner. I mean, Kinetic just came here the most well prepared, and they definitely had the setup down perfectly. The form of the Kinetic guys in this one was something to behold.
Yeah, it simply was, and Marco Mogren looked unbeatable all day long, even back there in 9th place at one stage. You just knew he was going to come back there, and he didn't look in doubt at all. Dean Mole comfortably the second quickest guy all day long as well. John King had to fight hard for it, but he comes home third. A reasonably late move to get up into third place ahead of, I do believe it was Skurlock at the time. And they finish up their formation on the start-finish line. Bit of wheel spin.
Good team photo, definitely.
Burnout. And yeah, a great photo up here in some beautiful looking cars.
Well, here are the results then. Marco Mogren taking the win by 4.1 seconds from Dean Mole. John King completing the podium. Dwayne Burns holding on for 4th, but it could have been a 3rd were it not for some drama with lapped cars later on. Michael Skurlock and Shane Bowen round out the top 6. There's some more missed opportunities for those guys, but they managed to keep it together and get it into the top 6. Fantastic stuff. Top 8 rounded out by Sean O'Hara and Mikko Dortanack, who made his way all the way through from the back of the grid.
Finishing off in 9th place, Cameron Dance, and rounding out the top 10 was Daniel Stevens. Drew London finishes in 11th place ahead of Full Auto, who was also 2 laps down. Then it was Riley Curtis, Brad Fenley, Matt Hunter, and Rod Ducati and McCarthy coming home 16th place after that engine failure towards the end of the race, finishing 10 laps down in the end.
17th place, Gavin Barber, classified 15 laps down. And then we get to our retirements. Chris Purnell, unfortunately, not making it back out onto the track after his incident. Dave Douglas, also an unfortunate casualty of this one. Craig Hawkins tried his very best to get it home, but it was just unfortunate out there on track for him as well. And Matthew Clote out 123 laps ago. So a lot of heartbreak, but a lot of celebration in this round of the Majors Series. And we've already got our podium, or 2 out of 3 of our podium, in the commentary box with us. Dean Mole and John King join us. We'll go to Dean first. Man, that was an excellent race from the Kinetic guys, locking out the podium. But you had some pretty good pace there. Obviously, Marco Mogren had the edge, but you held the lead of the race for a very long time in good fashion.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Christian Challoner put together the Kinetic setup, and it was an amazing car. Marco had just a little bit more pace than me. honestly, what I needed was him to get held up more in traffic, but he got through pretty quick. And then I tried to have another go on the last restart, but I didn't have anything for Marco. He was awesome, and it was a great drive for the win.
In terms of the setup and tackling the track, as it were, we did hear that tire life was going to be sort of an issue, but only when the tires are fresh out of the pits. So were any of you considering diving into the pits under that last caution?
No, I had no thoughts of coming into the pits there. When I pitted early, it was pretty hard to move back up through the field, so it was definitely a stay out. The car seemed to get quicker as the run went on, once you got heat in the tires, so it was just nail the first couple good laps, and then it.
John, there were a couple of dramas for you through the race, and it seemed like Craig Hawkins unfortunately came a cropper a couple of times. What was your position on that incident when you were going by him?
Oh, the one where we wrecked was 100% my fault. I was down the inside of him, but I was a bit wider than normal, and as I braked, I just got a little bit side. So totally my bad.
Well, that's good to hear that that it's been sorted out from your perspective. But still, a podium for you, John, and you ended up dicing with those lapped cars in the end, which definitely helped your case against Dwayne Burns.
Well, it did and it didn't, and I made a bit of a mistake, and Cam got back past me, and of course Cam and I think it was Dan Stevens were racing as well for position, so Cam couldn't just wave me through again, but Cam was really struggling on tires or something. He was sideways a lot, so he held me up, and I think it was Dwayne that caught me, but then I got past Cam again, and I pulled away, so it was cool.
Well, I could definitely tell you that the sliding from Cam was definitely intentional. It was something that he was doing for pretty much the whole race. But still, a podium lockout for Kinetic, John. You must be absolutely ecstatic for your team.
Yeah, super happy. And as Dean said, Christian worked really hard on the set. He's really enjoyed this combination, and he did a lot of work this week just because it was fun. And he was driving me crazy, to be honest, because he kept on producing a set, giving it to me to test, and I'd come back and say, "This is awesome, don't need to change anything." And then an hour later, he'd come back and say, "Okay, I've just tweaked a little bit more, try this one."
Well, that just goes to show the amount of effort that goes into your preparations for these races, John. As team leader, anyone you'd like to thank or give shout-outs to?
No, the whole team. Obviously, Christian for the sets. Eddie Hawks worked on sets as well for us. Liam Quinn did the set that I qualified with. Marco and Dean used Christian's set, but I qualified with Liam's set. So a whole bunch of people on the team worked really hard this week, and hopefully we'll get good results in the other regions as well. Dean and I needed this because we both had a bit of a meltdown the last 3 or 4 rounds, so we needed a good result today.
And a good result you certainly got. That's your second and third place guys there, Dean Moll and John King from Kinetic Swift Racing. Well, Ryan, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight. And I'll tell you what, it was an intriguing race. Certainly a bit of strategy to and fro we saw. And the struggles that the leaders were having with the lapped cars was certainly something that affected this result.
Certainly was. And we saw a lot of drivers struggling with their car today, and some incidents that seemed relatively simple, but it was a tough car to drive, and ultimately Kinetic, they tamed it brilliantly.
They certainly did. So we'd like to say goodbye and congratulations to Kinetic on their podium lockout. Mogren, Moll and King, once again, your top 3. Of course, thank you very much to the administration team of the Majors Series for putting on this fantastic championship, testing the diversity and the versatility of the sim racing community. Here on the iRacing Esports Network, we're SimSpeed TV, and we'll say bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken it
because these guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?